the thing we're gonna do now is something that I've been talking about for the last couple, or like last week already. We're gonna start doing some more in-depth TCG content, and we're even gonna do it with IRL cards, and that means we are going to be building a deck, a new deck from scratch today. I have prepared all the cards here. We're going to be building the deck, including side deck, from start to finish. And we're also not only going to build it in theory, we're also going to put it into practice. Not today, but we're going to be playing against Pack on Thursday. Pack is going to come on, join us on stream, and we're going to remote duel against Pack and see how the deck performs. I have no idea what Pack is going to be playing, and that means we're just going to have to make the deck. Like, we can't hard counter Pack's deck. Obviously, that's not a real deck building challenge. All right. I've already talked about what deck we're going to build, so let me quickly swap to my different setup. There we go. Once again, I have already looked into getting an actual like camera for my top-down setup. This is still my other webcam that I'm using. So if this is something that you guys are enjoying, I'm planning to do it more often in the future, and I will be having an even better camera for it. So just keep that in mind. Let me know any sort of feedback on this sort of format as per usual, right? Okay, so the deck we're going to be building, is Earthbound Prisoner Runick. The reason I picked this deck was, well, I have a couple reasons for picking this deck. But I want to preface this by saying, even if you're not super interested in Runick, because I know Runicks are not everyone's thing, I think this segment is still going to be interesting to you guys, because it's still there's a lot of lessons in deck building that I think apply every time, no matter what deck you're building. So I don't think it matters whether you're actually planning to play this exact deck or if you're trying to just apply certain aspects of this to your deck building, whatever. I think it's going to be helpful as a beginner. To another reason why I picked this deck is because the Earthbound cards are actually quite new, and I think they're quite interesting, and that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with a small talk about the new Earthbound cards from Maze of Millennia, and I'll quickly show you what exactly we're going to be trying to do. All right, now my mic is going to be in the screen slightly, but I'm sure it's fine. You guys just need to let me know as soon as my audio, if my audio is not fine, I have to move it closer, but I think this should work. Okay, so Earthbounds, I'll talk about them individually and let you guys know why I think these cards are interesting. All right, so most of these are from Maze of Millennia, but one of them was already in Age of Overlord. Okay, so what we have from Maze of Millennia, and the autofocus, this is one of the reasons why I want to get a better camera, because the autofocus on this thing is not the greatest. We'll have to make do with it. We have Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper, which is a level 1 Fiend Tuner, and reads, if this card is normal or special, you can special summon a level 5 or lower Earthbound from your deck or graveyard. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except Fusion or Synchros. This is a very common theme with Earthbounds. They're going to be locking you into Fusion and Synchro, which is obviously why they have great synergy with a Runick Synchro deck. That's the main part that's important about this little guy. It's just a level 1, basically a deep sea diva for the archetype. Summons one of the other ones from your deck, right? I know you can't read the cards when I'm holding them up like that. That's simply because my camera isn't good enough at the moment, but I will get a better one so we can do that in the future. For now, you just have to listen to me read them to you. The two possible things we can summon with Groundkeeper are Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper and Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker. I think the better of the two to summon is Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker, because Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker on normal or special summon adds a Harmonic Synchro Fusion or Earthbound Prison, which are these two down here. I'll get to them in a second. From your deck or graveyard to your hand, and has a secondary effect that we're going to talk about later, but is not super relevant. But this is also a level 3 Fiend Tuner. So what you're going to get is you're going to normal summon Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. You're going to summon Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker. You're going to be able to add one of these cards to your hand, and this is all from one card. One card gives you 2 tuners on the board with different levels and a search for one of these spell cards. Now, Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper, I think Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper is the best out of the bunch, because it's actually quite the versatile card that doesn't even need to necessarily be played in Earthbounds, because it says you can discard this card, add a level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner from your deck to your hand. It locks you into Synchros and Fusions for the rest of the turn, but still, this card can search a whole lot of other cards as well, which we're going to talk about some of these options later that we could include into the deck. But it lets you add a level 3 or lower Fiend, which is both of the other Earthbounds are searchable by this. So in the context of our deck, this is most of the time just going to be a Rhoda for most of the time. You're going to start with this one, right? Because you would rather have this to special this than just normal summon this, right? You would rather start with Groundkeeper. So most importantly, this just gives you more copies of your best starter because you can discard it to search it. It has another very neat bonus though for our purposes, which is if there's a card in the field zone, any field zone, also your opponent's, you can just special summon it from your hand. This is very cool because if you ever draw 2 of this, you can use one to search your Earthbound normal summon, and you can just special the other one as a non-tuner extender, because this is a level 5 non-tuner, right? So that's the basic setup of the monsters. As well as the 2 search targets for Linewalker, which I'm not sure if we're actually going to play both. We're going to talk about that in a second. Harmonic Synchro Fusion, which is that's the one I think we're definitely going to play with, because it's the better of the 2. It has quite the interesting mechanic, because you have to send a tuner and a non-tuner from your field to the graveyard, and then you summon a fusion and a synchro from your extra deck that can both be summoned with those monsters. For example, just as an example, I'm using two Earthbounds right now. If you were to go normal summon Groundkeeper, special summon Stonesweeper, activate Harmonic Synchro Fusion, you send these 2 to the graveyard and you get both of the extra deck monsters. You get the Synchro and the Fusion. And we're going to be using that in a variety of different ways, I think, in this deck. Mostly, I believe we're going to use it to get a free Dragostapelia alongside our Synchro summon. This is not counted. It is not treated as a fusion summon or a synchro summon. It is a special summon, to just to be clear. And then Earthbound Prison. Earthbound Prison is, I would say it's not a very good card, but because we could search it for free, you could consider playing it. Because when this card is activated, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls. While this card is in the field zone, negate the effects of that face-up monster. So it is kind of like a searchable negate for a face-up monster. It also gives you an additional normal summon for an Earthbound, which could get you out of some situations where you draw too many Earthbound normal summons. Still, I am not convinced that this card is that good. However, one specific scenario where this card could come in handy is if you open exactly both of your small Earthbounds, right? Because what you can do is normal summon Linewalker, search this, activate the field spell, second normal summon this, and then just special summon either this or another tuner, depending on what you want, right? So you have a way to get both of these out of your hand if you draw both. However, since we're playing a Runick deck, I'm gonna be honest with you, you could just discard one of the 2 and be happy about that, right? The Earthbound extra deck monsters, because Earthbound is a fusion and synchro centric archetype. They obviously have their own fusion and synchros. Unfortunately, for the purposes of this deck, most of these are not very useful. We're going to talk about, I mean, the thing is, like, because it only locks you into synchro and fusion, you don't have to use the Earthbound extra deck monsters, but you could. Two, I think, are specifically worth mentioning. The other ones I want to put aside for now, because we don't need to talk about these. They're not very good in the purpose of this deck, or for the purpose of this deck. Yugioh Kraken, I believe, is in theory the best Earthbound fusion monster. Because if this card is special summoned, you add a field spell, any field spell, so it could search Runick Fountain, from deck or graveyard to your hand. Also, if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck, you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible that were special summoned this turn, and if you do, inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. This card both searches you a field spell and is a good endboard piece because it's disruption. If we could summon this and leave it on the board as an endboard piece, that would be ideal. However, its requirements are 2 Earthbound monsters, and that's a huge problem because, like, you think, okay, I just go Earthbound Groundkeeper, Linewalker, and then I grab Harmonic Synchro Fusion, and here we are. 2 Earthbounds and the fusion spell, right? We can go. No, we can't, because we have to have it's only tuner and non-tuner. We need only this. You could only make it if you had Stone Sweeper in your hand as well, right? If you had Stone Sweeper in your hand as well, you could summon it. Then you could Harmonic Synchro Fusion either with these 2 into a level 6 Synchro plus this, or these 2 into a level 8 Synchro plus this, right? Which is possible, but I'm not sure if it's going to be worth an extra deck slot. But if we can make this card, I think it would be worth including, because you have more ways of searching Fountain, even when your Hugin gets negated, right? That's cool. The other one worth mentioning is Yugioh Griffin. Yugioh Griffin is kind of cool. It's kind of like a mini Axel Stardust Dragon for Earthbounds. It requires a Dark Tuner and a non-tuner, and it's a level 8, and it just revives an Earthbound from your grave in defense position. Even as it's a quick effect. It's not even an on summon, so you could even do it multiple times if you leave it on the board. So this card is good, but I'm not sure if we're actually gonna need it. The other ones, I guess, Geo Gremlina, which is the one from Age of Overlord, is okay. I wish the fusion requirement for it were slightly different, but this card says if this card is special summoned, you can add an Earthbound monster from your deck to your hand. And then it has some battle phase related stuff, which we're Runick gamers, we don't need those. Technically good if it's special summoned, add an Earthbound from deck to your hand. Technically a good effect. The problem with this is that you won't need an Earthbound when you already have your Earthbounds in this deck, right? Like you as soon as you have your Earthbounds in rotation, you're happy with that, right? So that's the thing. So the extra deck monsters aside, what we're trying to do with this deck essentially is we're gonna normal summon Groundkeeper. We're gonna summon either Stone Sweeper or Linewalker, but more often we're gonna summon Linewalker. We're gonna add Harmonic Synchro Fusion, and then we wanna summon non-tuners and go from there, right? Because one summon giving us 2 tuners and the fusion spell is actually quite the good value for playing any sort of Runick Synchro deck, right? Another thing that I want to point out before we move on is that I believe because this deck is gonna lock yourself into fusion and synchro, we're not gonna use these 2 guys over here. Even though maybe we might want them as an option still, but I think it's without a doubt possible to play this deck without these. The autofocus is bad. Okay, I can turn off autofocus. Give me a second. I wasn't sure if it was going to be bad or not, but the autofocus is kind of bad on this one, so I might just turn it off. Yeah, I'll just turn it off. I'm sorry. All right. Yeah, now autofocus is off. Both of these cards are potentially strong options, but because because we lock ourselves into fusion and synchro very early in all of our combos, and harmonic synchro fusion even locks you for the entire turn, I believe we're not going to play these cards. We're not going to play these cards, and I think that makes this deck surprisingly a very viable budget option. Like, I don't know exactly how good this deck is going to be, and once again, we're going through the entire deck building process today, so even I have not finished I haven't finished building this deck. I have not finished exploring all the possible lines. That is partially what this video, this segment is supposed to be. But I do think they have potential. I do think they have potential because in a very simple world, you're gonna have this sort of setup. You're gonna normal summon Groundkeeper. You're gonna special summon Linewalker. You're gonna add Harmonic Synchro Fusion. You're going to use a Runick to summon Hugin, to grab your Fountain, and then we have a whole lot of options to go from here, right? We have a whole lot of, we have a huge lineup here that we can do whatever we want with, pretty much, right? Like, we have level 5 Synchro, level 3 Synchro, we can summon more Runicks later, we can even summon Sleipnir to make Baron first, those kind of things. I believe this is pretty cool, and I want to go through some of the options, and I also want you guys, if you at any point have any input, any ideas, to feel free and join in Twitch chat and drop your ideas and think with me on what we're gonna do with this deck, obviously. But because we're not playing SP or Typhon, I believe this deck is actually going to be a strong budget option, which was not the reason why I picked it, but it's just a small bonus that I noticed earlier, is that Runicks are relatively affordable, Earthbounds are super cheap, no SP in the extra deck. So I'll be honest with you, if you're looking for a budget option for next format, this might just be it. This might just be the one. Okay. A couple of things that I already have prepared, though, is I have a whole lot of extra deck options that we're going to have to talk about right now. Because the first step to building this deck, I believe, is figuring out what exactly we want to do. The deck is not going to have... well, the cool things about the Earthbounds, actually, is that they do have one-card combos, which is very rare in a Runick deck. Like, for example, if you open Quem in Runick Bestial, that's not a one-card combo. You always need a Runick, which makes it like, if you don't have a single Runick in your hand, which obviously doesn't happen very often, but then you really can't do anything with those, right? The thing is, like, Groundkeeper in itself, even at the very minimum, can draw you a card by summoning Stone Sweeper and making Stardust Charge Warrior, which, by the way, I have these I have these two placeholders over here if I ever want to talk about a card, but I don't have it, which I tried to organize all the cards we're going to need, but one thing that has not arrived in time is a Stardust Charge Warrior, which I refused to buy all the time because it only has a gold rare, but now I need it and I don't have it. I apologize, but that's what the placeholders are here for. And the thing about this is you can make a Charge Warrior to draw a card even if you don't have a single Runick, which is cool. But the more realistic scenario, obviously, which is the one I want to figure out first, is what happens if we have Groundkeeper plus a Runick. Groundkeeper plus a Runick is one scenario that we're going to have to find a solution for. Another important thing that we have to find a solution for, which is also something that's very important when you're trying to figure out if a deck like this is viable or not, is don't always go off of the optimal case, because you're not always going to start with Groundkeeper, and your Groundkeeper is also not always going to resolve. So the two other scenarios we're going to need to have a solution for is, what if we open Linewalker? Because Linewalker is also a tuner that is technically a fine normal summon, because on normal summon it gives you one of these two. But then you're not going to have the level 1 tuner on top of it. So are we still going to be able to make some cool combos happen with just Linewalker plus a Runick, for example? Or is that not going to be strong enough? That's another thing we have to figure out. The other thing we need to figure out is, what do we do if we summon Groundkeeper and it gets Veilered, Impermed, Ashed, because all those cards work on it. And what happens if we just have Groundkeeper and it gets interrupted, right? And those are the three scenarios we have to go through, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think it matters. Like, we can look at more card combos later, but I'm gonna be honest with you, if you have even more of those cards, then you're probably gonna be hooking anyways, right? And I do think the biggest challenge at this point is extra deck space, because in order to have solutions for all these different lines, we're gonna have to have different options in our extra deck, and that's something we're gonna have to wait and see how well we can balance it. I do think without SP and Typhon, there's a chance we have enough room for the options that we need. But yeah, one other thing before we move on that I want you to keep in mind is that we have the option to search a different card with Stone Sweeper, which I believe makes Vision Resonator alongside Crimson Gaia a great great inclusion in this deck, because we all know it's a great discard for Hugin. It's even a great special summon extender that we can use later on in our combo, and like, it's just overall phenomenal cards, right? We would never play 3 and 3 of the Resonator package, but I could see playing like something like 2 and 2, or 2 and 1 even, like, because Crimson Gaia can add from the graveyard. Like, if it'd be fine to do it like this, just as a potential search target for Stone Sweeper, just in case we already have our normal summon, right? Another challenge that comes with this, though, the only thing about this card that could be problematic is that it's a level 2 tuner, which means we have level 1, 2, and 3 tuners, which you would think that makes you as flexible as possible. On another note, you'll probably gonna have a lot of different cards in your extra deck you have to accommodate for that, right? You need a large portion of your extra deck for those. But yeah, so that's the Earthbound engine and why it has such great synergy with the Runick cards. And this is where we're at. So scenario number 1 that I've been thinking about is the standard, we don't get interrupted, Groundkeeper, special Line Walker, add Harmonic Synchro Fusion, use a Runick, whichever, right? Use a Runick to special Hugin. Hugin discards whatever card from your hand to add Fountain. And this is where we're at. This is where we're at. What do we do? What do we want to do from here? And option number 1, so obviously you're going to activate Harmonic Synchro Fusion here, right? You're going to activate Harmonic Synchro Fusion here, and you're going to send the Hugin alongside one of the 2 tuners to the graveyard to summon a Synchro and a Fusion. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only good fusion to summon in this scenario is Dragos Tapelia. If anyone can think of a different fusion that we can summon here that would be great, feel free to let me know, because I could not really think of many, or any really that was worth it over Dragos Tapelia. But maybe there is one I missed, but I think so. We're gonna get a free Dragos Tapelia basically, and a Synchro 5 or Synchro 3. The first option that seems to be the most popular when I have looked into what people are doing with this deck is Denglong. I do not want to play Denglong. I do not want to play Denglong. I don't think it's a good idea to play Denglong for multiple reasons. The first reason is that you have to play the counter trap, which does nothing if you draw it. And I simply don't want that. The other thing is that if you make Denglong here, and I also don't have a Denglong. If you make Denglong here and you search a trap card, you just get nibbed here. You have nothing to float into with Denglong, and nib also turns off your trap card. No, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm pretty sure that this deck is going to be weak to Nibiru in some way, shape, or form, regardless. Because I have not yet, at least, I have not figured out a way how this plays around Nibiru. Because you would have to, like, whatever you summon here as a synchro, like, because Harmonic Synchro Fusion summons 2 monsters, those are gonna be summon 4 and 5, right? One of them is Dragostapelia, number 5 is the synchro. With just the 2-card combo, I don't believe you can play around Nibiru. Now, of course, if you draw extenders, there's going to be ways to play around Nibiru. Like, for example, if we have a Stone Sweeper in hand, we can activate Fountain before we fuse. We activate Fountain, we summon Stone Sweeper. Now, we can Baron. Theoretically, here, if we wanted to do that. We could Baron. But that is a story for later on how we play around Nib with the engine. But Denglong doesn't seem great to me, mainly because I don't want to be playing the brick for it. And so what I like to do in these sort of scenarios is just go onto your card database of choice and check for available options. And I did that this morning to check for stuff to discuss when it comes to level 5 synchros. And so we're gonna do that right now. And I do believe I have found something that is worth trying that I haven't seen people try yet. And I'm going to bring it up in a second and talk to you about why I think that is a better version than Denglong potentially. So the first one that came to my mind was Librarian. If you make Librarian here, that thing is going to potentially draw you a lot of cards from here on out. Because if you summon more Runicks, you can just keep synchro summoning and stuff like that. And that's cool. And I do believe that we might be playing Librarian as an option. However, 2 things worth pointing out. The first thing is that Librarian, while it is a phenomenal card in Runick synchro decks, only works if you have 2 Runicks, really. I mean, theoretically, actually, you could, with the Dragostapelia, at this point, like, you Harmonic Synchro Fusion into Librarian plus Dragostapelia, even if you don't have another Runick, these could synchro into a level 9, like Shen or Croc, and then we would get 1 or 2 draws here anyways. Could be okay, honestly. Like, that could be okay. The other level 5 that I thought about was Ib. Now, Ib, I'm gonna be honest with you, Ib is a good card. Ib has a lot of engine requirements, though. And I don't know if I'm down to play Ib. Like, I don't want my deck to have, like, a lot, like, an insane amount of stuff that I really don't want to draw. So Ib is something that we're gonna keep in the back of our minds. Potentially as an option if nothing else works out, though. It's not my favorite. Oh, it needs to be synchro summoned anyways, and this does not count as a synchro summon. Never mind. Good point. It does not work. Yeah, it doesn't even trigger. Okay, Ib goes. Ib flies. All right, good. Noted. The other one that I think is semi-viable is Axel Synchron. I think this is cool. That like, you can just make Axel Synchron to send whatever. Because this makes it so you just have a lot more tuners. And that's fine. Obviously, we have to play Synchrons for this. Like, Jet Synchron is probably the most common one. Jet Synchron wouldn't really be that bad of a draw either, because we can just discard it for Hugin. Like, that'd be okay. So Axel Synchron, I believe, is an option alongside Jet. But the card that I actually think is the one I want to try to cook with is this thing, which is a card that I have had laying around. I have had it laying around for a long time because I think it's a solid card, and that's Garden Rose Maiden. And that's a card that some of y'all might not even know. But this card on summon, what it does is it adds you Black Garden Where did I put Black Garden? Somewhere. I put Black Garden somewhere. It adds Black Garden from your deck or graveyard. And the reason why that's good is because it makes Black Garden not a bad draw, because you can just discard it for Hugin and this fetches it from the graveyard anyways, which makes it better than, for example, drawing Pillar. The reason why I think Black Garden is interesting here, and hear me out for a second, is that I noticed this morning that Earthbound Prisoner Linewalker has 800 attack. And what Black Garden does, I guess, is something that we might have to talk about, is whenever a monster is summoned, normal or special summoned, the opponent of whoever summoned that monster gets a plant, like a rose token with 800 attack. And you can once per turn, well, not once per turn technically, but you can target a monster in your graveyard that has the same attack as all plant monsters on the board combined, destroy all the plant monsters on the board combined, and you bring back that monster. The only problem with this line is that Dragostapelia is a plant too. So that would also count towards the Black Garden thingy, right? So in this scenario, one thing we could do is we can just not use the Harmonic Synchro Fusion. You can just Heart Make the Garden Rose Maiden, right? You can just make the Garden Rose Maiden like this, and then summon the Dragostapelia. Like, you can still use the Harmonic Synchro Fusion at some point later. That's option number one. Option number two is synchroing away the Dragostapelia at some point, which is also possible. But the reason why I think that's cool is because, and this is the most important part for me personally, is if you only open one Runick, you don't have a way to trigger your fountain. This combo draws you a card by going into draws you two cards, and I'll show you how. Okay, so let's just assume we only opened one Runick and the rest of our hand is whatever, non-engine, right? Like this is our hand, the rest is non-engine. What we can do is we go normal summon Groundkeeper, special summon Linewalker, add, for this matter, it doesn't matter which one of the two you add here, and then you activate the Runick to summon Hugin. Right? You grab Fountain, whatever. You go Garden Rose Maiden, add Black Garden, activate Black Garden, Synchro Summon into Stardust Charge Warrior, which once again I have to use a proxy for because I don't have it. Where is the proxy? Here. You make Charge Warrior. It has to be Charge Warrior, by the way. The Tri-Edge doesn't work because with 5 and 1, Tri-Edge does not draw a card. Tri-Edge does not draw a card. Black Garden triggers here, giving our opponent a token, which is 800 attack. Which, with 800 attack, we can immediately use Black Garden to blow up that token and bring back the Linewalker from the graveyard. Because it's 800 attack as well, right? And then these two can make a Croc, which draws you another card, which is potentially a another interruption on your opponent's turn, right? And so even if we did not have a second Runick, we've managed to draw 2 cards to find that second Runick, right? We've managed to draw 2 cards to find that second Runick and keep extending, which I think is interesting. I think that's interesting. Sleeve that garden? I can sleeve the garden, yes. And this is why I felt like this line in particular is interesting. Like I said, the only problem in my mind with this line is that the Dragostapelia is in the way. Because it's a plant, you can't use Black Garden to revive the Linewalker while the Dragostapelia is on the board. Can the Earthbound and the Charge fuse into something? That would be one way to make use of the Harmonic Synchro Fusion. because if we are here, this is Stardust Charge Warrior. Can we tune these two into something interesting? But I don't believe so. No. No. This isn't that good of an end board. Well, this is the worst case scenario though. That's what I'm trying to get to. You are it's very hard to evaluate Runick decks just by looking at like the scenario where they only draw one Runick, because this was not the end board. This was not the end board. Another thing potentially about Garden Rose Maiden that I liked in theory was that it is a level 5 synchro that technically works even without opening Groundkeeper, which is something that I've mentioned earlier, right? Like, if you don't open Groundkeeper, but you open Linewalker immediately, right? This plus Hugin going into Garden Rose Maiden is potentially still an okay line, which it wouldn't be with like Librarian, for example. But yeah. But I think the best option is between Axel and Garden Rose Maiden. I think that is the best possible way to do it. Is it going to be weekly? It depends how much material I have, you know, because I need the cards and I need a deck. But I thought about it's definitely going to happen more often, yeah. But okay, the thing at this point that makes sense, I believe, is to talk about the extra deck a little bit, because all these options, we have to keep in mind how much extra deck space this deck is going to need. So at the bare minimum, we're probably going to play 2 Hugins. We're probably going to play 1 Gary. We're probably going to play Sleipnir in this deck. The reason why Sleipnir is good in this deck is because Groundkeeper is a level 1 tuner, so you can make a Baron very early. So these, this is probably set in stone. We have the option to play these 4. We can play Munin and Freki for level modulation. We can play a second Gary if necessary. We can play a third Hugin if necessary. But for the most part, 4 is the minimum here. Unless we're messing with other ways to fuse, Dragostapelia is going to be our fusion of choice for the Harmonic Synchro fusion. And that means we have room for 10 Synchros. 10 Synchros is what we have room for. And I think this is also the biggest hindrance to playing the Vision Resonators, is because you never, like, you can't guarantee to draw these, right? You might have them, you might not. But preparing your extra deck for a level 2 tuner seems rather difficult in this sort of situation. But we'll have to see. The Wall, thank you for the 4 months. Appreciate that. Thank you. Also, Wonky Moose, thank you for the 5 months as well. Appreciate that. Yeah. All right. And then as far as the Earthbounds go, I would love to include this guy, but I'm not sure if it's worth it. We have to see if there's ways to figure this out. Oh, another thing about Garden Rose Maiden that I even forgot to mention, it does more than just searching the Black Garden. It also, you can banish this card from your grave and reborn a Rose Dragon or a Dragon Synchro. So if we are going to go for some Rose Maiden line, we want to be playing, we want to at some point make a Dragon Synchro that we can just bring back once more. There's different options for this that I've already looked at. Like, we could try to incorporate some sort of like Coral Dragon, right? We can make Coral Dragon later. Which, by the way, if you have a second Runick, this is where it gets really nasty, because then instead of making what's it called, Charge Warrior, you make Coral Dragon, summon Gary, Synchro 10, and then this brings the Coral Dragon back once more. That's very interesting. But we could also, depending on how our levels go, it's possible to play some sort of Shooting Riser stuff, or Ancient Fairy to swap our different field spells for each other. Like, we could also just not use the Black Garden, actually. Like, we can just not Reborn with Black Garden. We can just activate it after we summon Ancient Fairy to get another free fountain. Or we obviously, another good synchro is Stardust as well. So like, if we manage to incorporate one of these four at some point, we get a free revive with Garden Rose Maiden as well, which I think is particularly interesting on these two because you get more tuners, right? Once again. So food for thought. Food for thought, at least, right? Is Zombie World worth to search with Kraken? I don't think we're going to play Kraken, unfortunately. I would love to, but I don't think you can, because it simply is. I think it doesn't come up often enough, but we'll think about it more later. Another thing that we absolutely need for this deck, it is, in my opinion, mandatory, is we're gonna need some line including a level 3 synchro, because we need a plan for what happens if our Groundkeeper gets negated. That is something we need. And the plan cannot be to summon Sleipnir and make Baron, because that's possible, but then we don't have Fountain, which is something we simply cannot accept as a Runick deck. Ending on Baron Pass without Fountain into the hand trap is not something we can do. Not something we can afford to do. We have to summon Hugin. We have to assume that we have to summon Hugin, right? And so the options here include Sorrowcat, Marcher, and Integrator, as far as I am concerned, as what I found viable targets for this situation. Now, the thing is, all of these, no matter which one you pick, you need more Runicks in hand. You're not going to be able to do it with just one of these, nothing else. None of them work, but that's okay, because if they hand trap the Groundkeeper, they're probably not going to hand trap the Hugin, so we're going to have like Fountain and more Runicks and all that kind of stuff. Or like, I mean, it's very likely we have backup Runicks anyways, is what I'm trying to say. So it's not the end of the world that we need more Runicks for any of these. It's okay. Like, comparing the options here, I think Cyber's Integrator is the first one that immediately has to go, because it's a non-tuner. And how are we even going to, like, even if we make Integrator, how are we going to continue from here? I don't see it. We need another tuner extender for this, so I think Integrator is done for. These two, Metal Marcher on summon. Metal Marcher on summon revives a tuner from your graveyard. So you would go Metal Marcher with these two, bring back Groundkeeper, and then with another Runick, we can go from here, right? That's cool, right? Because one thing you'll notice is at this point, if you have another Runick, we are now in the same situation as we were previously. Had we had our Groundkeeper resolved, we still have level 1 tuner, level 3 tuner, Runick up here. So it's the same situation, even through a hand trap. That's why I like this option, because it's going to require the same cards in the extra deck. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be the same extra deck setup. We're going to save extra deck spaces because we got the same situation going on. That's what I like about this. The Synchro you summon with Marcher is a tuner, which it would turn Garden Rose Maiden into a tuner, which is something you have to keep in mind though, but it's interesting still. The other option is Samsara Sorrowcat, which is just like, it's a cool card. It's a level 3 Synchro tuner that has a quick effect to Synchro summon on your opponent's turn. And if it's in the graveyard, you can target another Synchro in your grave, return it to the extra, and then bring it back, which basically makes it a double tuner as well. So I think both of these cards are good options for that. But we're gonna have to figure out a line that works if our groundkeeper gets stopped by a hand trap, which is probably gonna include one of these two, right? And so our extra deck, or maybe even both, maybe there's different lines that we can discover to justify playing both. I don't think so though. But these two, one of these two most likely is going to be included, which puts our extra deck up to 6. We are most definitely going to be playing Coral Dragon, if I can find it. I already had it here a second ago. We are definitely going to be playing Coral Dragon and Stardust Charge Warrior. So that puts our extra deck at 8. Which means we have a decent amount of... We have space to work with, I think. We have space to work with. So let's start by doing the simplest thing, which is work on our standard combo line first. Standard combo line first, like I said earlier. You're going to be Groundkeeper into Line Walker, into Search, one of these two, into having a couple of Runicks in your hand. Whichever ones. Whichever ones. We're going to activate a Runick. And summon the Hugin. Hugin is going to discard one card off our hand. Doesn't matter which one. I'll ignore it for now. And we grab Fountain. Right? So we are at this point. Let us try to work on the Garden Rose Maiden line first, because I think that one is the most interesting. And at this point, like I said earlier, I hate the fact that Dragostapelia is specifically a plant, because if it wasn't a plant, we could just activate Harmonic Synchro Fusion here and don't care about the fact that Dragostapelia just sits there. But because it is a plant, I'm not sure if we want to summon it right now or not. However, I don't think it matters that much for the sense of the combo. Just keep in mind, at any point, like, because whether you activate Synchro Fusion or whether you just hard Synchro doesn't make a huge difference. Because the only difference is the Dragostapelia is on the board, which means that the Dragostapelia is most likely going to be an end board piece anyways. So we can just ignore it. We can just pretend like, okay, we have the option to summon it, but we also could do it later. So it might be here, it might not. It's Schrodinger's Dragostapelia. If it is in the way of the Black Garden combos, we can simply summon it at another point. Your line plays hard into Nib by summoning Hugin first. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna go Hugin first in a Runick deck? Like, yeah, if you have 3 Runicks, you can go... if you have 3 Runicks, you can play around Nibiru by making Baron, but that's not the simple combo. The simple combo has to play into Nib. Because I'm not going to be playing a Runick deck that doesn't search Fountain. But okay. Anyways, we make the Maiden. The Maiden fetches the Garden to our hand. At this point, we have these 3 cards in our hand, or the Fusion, or maybe we've used it. I don't know. At this point, all you really need to do, if you don't have another Runick, we already talked about what you can do, but if you do have another Runick, what do we do, right? Let's just use one that's not Tip, because Tip you would obviously search with, but let's just use like Freezing Curse, right? Now, one thing you definitely won't do is just activate Black Garden, I think. Because if you just activate Black Garden, your opponent is gonna have too many tokens. The more likely thing you want to do is probably summon activate Runick Fountain, and then activate Freezing Curses, obviously, to special summon Runick again. the question is, which level do we want here? We have a bunch of options. We have a bunch of options. I mean, you can make Coral Dragon first and then Gary. Coral Dragon and Gary, which is fine, I guess. We can make Sleipnir. We can make Sleipnir to threaten the Baron. The problem with this is that it's after, like, this is summon number... This Runick is summon number 5, even if we don't use Harmonic Synchro Fusion. If we don't use Harmonic Synchro Fusion, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 summons at this point. So my suggestion is that we go for Coral Dragon here. My suggestion is before we even use the Runick, we go for Coral Dragon. We go for Coral Dragon because this, even if we get nibbed, at least nets us a draw, which might be important in the grind game with Runicks, right? Because that's the thing. Even if we do get nibbed at some point here, as long as we have enough Runicks in our hand, I think we're okay. And the cool thing about having the Black Garden in your hand, actually, the really cool thing about the Black Garden in your hand, and this is specifically why this morning I felt like this was the best way to do it, is if we get nibbed... Hold up. So, activate Fountain, activate Freezing Curses, summon Gary, trigger Fountain, draw 2. If your opponent has nib, they nib here. They have to nib here, otherwise you have Baron. They nib here, you draw a card with Coral Dragon. What happens now is you have Garden Rose Maiden to bring back the Coral Dragon. So you have another Synchro, another tuner, right? You bring back another tuner from your graveyard, level 6. Another thing that you have is Black Garden. You can Black Garden, and after just summoning one monster, like even without anything else, with just summoning one monster, like the Coral Dragon here, I can blow up the Black Garden to bring back the Line Walker, so I have another tuner. So even if I get nibbed in this line, I have 2 tuner later down the line to keep playing after I get nibbed. Do you see why I think this is better than Denglong and anything else that we've talked about previously? I think this is the line, genuinely. I think this is the line you want to go for. Because you simply, like, this is the best possible play into nib that you can make without having to summon like a freaking Sleipnir first thing, right? So just as a recap, right? This is the combo of Groundkeeper and 2 Runicks. Groundkeeper, 2 Runicks. Summon, search. One of these 2. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't even know if we're gonna use the Synchro Fusion in this scenario. We might use it, honestly, you might use it as a discard for Harmonics for your Hugin. Unironically, it might be the free discard for Hugin that we just do, but maybe not. We'll see. Flashing Fire. Hugin. Let's just do it in this example. I'm discarding the Synchro Fusion to grab Fountain. Where's Fountain? Okay. Fountain. We hard Synchro into Rose Maiden. And it grabs us the Black Garden. If you had opened the Black Garden, by the way, if you had opened the Black Garden, you would have discarded it instead of the Synchro Fusion, because the Rose Maiden would have added it from the graveyard for free as well. This does not only add from the deck, it also adds from the graveyard, which is important. Here, we make Giri. Not Giri. We make Coral Dragon. We activate Freezing Curses to summon Giri after we've activated Fountain, obviously. And we draw 2 with Fountain. If we don't get nibbed, we make Baron. We draw 1 from Coral Dragon. And we keep playing from here by doing a couple things. The first thing we can do is we have Garden Rose Maiden to bring back a level 6 tuner from the graveyard. This level 6 tuner, depending on what we pair it up with, could end up being whatever, right? Like whatever, we could make another level 10 Synchro. Like one thing I'm thinking is this version might need 2 Garys, because the really juicy thing that we can do after we've done these combos is we can play a Black Garden over the fountain. Black Garden over the fountain, Runick into a second Gary, add back the fountain from the graveyard, Black Garden, pop the token, bring back the Line Walker. You see what I'm saying, right? You see what we're cooking here. So I think we need I think we're gonna play 2 Garys for this. I think we're gonna have to play a second Gary for this. Another thing that I want to point out that I think is very neat. So we have just summoned. Okay. Before you summon the Gary to draw 2 with Fountain in this combo line, when your setup is you've just synchroed into the Coral Dragon with these 2, only 1 Runick has been used, right? If you have any Runick in your hand that does not summon a monster, which is Slumber or Tip, or I guess Golden Droplet theoretically, but let's assume Slumber or Tip. If you have these right now, in this situation, right? This would be the exact situation. If you have one of these 2, what you can do is activate Runick Slumber, banish 3 of your opponent's deck. This only works if you have another Runick, by the way. Like, you still need another Runick. But what you can do for maximum value is Runick Slumber, banish 3 of your opponent's deck, draw 2 with this fountain. Then you set Black Garden over your fountain. And then before you summon the first Gary, you already have fountain in the graveyard, so you get it back. You get it back because you were able to set the Black Garden over your fountain. And later, once you flip over the Black Garden, make Baron, draw 1 from Gary, give them a token, Black Garden, blow up the token, bring back the Line Walker, activate fountain again, keep cooking. See? And I think this entire thing in my head just makes so much sense that I don't think you want to go back to a different level 5 Synchro for this. Like, when I found this morning, I legit sat here, card database, level 5 Synchros, looked through all of it, found this one, looked at the stats on Line Walker and whatever. I don't think I want to go back. I think this is it. I think this is probably the best way to play the deck, because it's also minimal main deck requirements. Baby Baron, yeah, that Baron would be 1500. Yeah, that Baron would be 1500. It'd be funny, but I guess it's fine. That'd be okay. I mean, you don't even have to do it this way. You could also you could just activate the Black Garden, not set it, and then the Gary would be you would just trigger the Black Garden on the Gary here, and that would also work. And then you bring back the level 3 before. Yeah, that also works. So, I'm gonna be honest, I like this concept. And I also I also don't know if we need Harmonic Synchro Fusion for this. I don't know if we need Harmonic Synchro Fusion for all of this, because I'm getting the feeling that just playing the field spell would be better. And we also would save the extra deck slot. We would save the extra deck spot for this. All right, quick recap where we're at. You could run 1. I mean, I'm at max gonna run 1. You're never gonna run more than 1 of the fusion, because the fusion is not that good. The spell is not that good. The spell is just an engine requirement. recap. Extra deck. Probably 2 Hugins in case your first one gets negated. Dragostapelia, maybe not mandatory. Charge Warrior and Coral for sure. And I'm gonna be honest, I think I want a second Gary if I can find it. Gary, come home. There it is. 2 Garys. Alright, 5. These 3. This. One thing we have to consider at this point, and it's gonna be all. I'm sorry. I hope it's not too confusing for any of you. I hope you guys can keep up with my thought process here. If at any point there is something that you want me to explain again, feel free to ask. As long as it doesn't completely, like, you know, stop me in my thought process or anything like that, I'll be happy to repeat something to the class. But the thing that we have to consider now, we're gonna circle back to things I said earlier a couple times. I said earlier that we need different, like, plans for, we don't always get to resolve all of these cards, right? Sometimes portions of this combo will be stopped. And so when we have the Metal Marcher, it actually has a very specific, like, sentence on it, which if you synchro summon using Metal Marcher, the synchro you summon with it is treated as a tuner, which in this case could mess up our lines, because like I said earlier, if we normal summon Groundkeeper and they Veiler or Impermit, and we summon out a Hugin after, we grab our Fountain, right? We go into Metal Marcher. Metal Marcher brings this back, and then we have another Runick to go into whatever from our extra deck. We can get whatever level here. If we synchro using this Metal Marcher now, it's going to be a tuner. So if I summon another Hugin, for example, and I make the Garden Rose Maiden. Where's my maiden? Dude, I'm maidenless. Oh, there it is. Make Garden Rose Maiden. Oh no, I see how we do it. Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. That works out. Well, we need another Runick for it, but it works out. It does work out. It's a tuner, so you can just make, like, Gary, add back, because if you've gone through two Hugins, you're gonna have 2 Fountains in rotation, most likely. Which means that you can just go Gary, add back a Fountain, make Croc, draw a card, make Baron. That works. Yeah, that works. Okay. Yeah, that works. Okay. Dude, this deck is working. So we need Marcher. We need Croc. Alright. Yeah. Can you add Bestials too? I don't think Bestials work in this version of the deck. So this would be... We're at 2 Hugins, 2 Garys, 1 Sleipnir. Baron, Brock, 2 level 6s, Charge Warrior, Rose Maiden, and this, which is 11, which means... And this is, I think... We need another level 10 probably, which would be probably Chaos Angel and or Chengying. There's no real reason to play this pattern. Actually, can we make this pattern? Because this thing banishes itself. You could bring it back. You could bring Garden Rose Maiden back later to have even more recovery. Because, dude, if we can bring this back with this pattern, our combo is gonna be mad. The follow-up, because this can bring back this pattern on the next turn, but then the non-tuner has to be a dragon. Non-tuner dragon. This. Can Can we incorporate these to make this pattern? Food for thought. Food for thought. Postpone that for later. But possibly. Possibly. Not impossible is what I'm trying to say. The problem with Axel Stardust, by the way, is that it's relatively easy to summon in this deck, but you don't have level 2 tuners unless you draw the resonators, which I'm not even sure we're going to use yet. I'm not even certain we're going to be using the resonators. But we might. Ancient Fairy popping the Rose Garden is cooking. Ancient Fairy... I'm thinking about Ancient Fairy in a different way right now, because one thing I actually don't really want to do is pop my Black Garden, because popping Black Garden to search another field spell is fine. At the same time, Black Garden is just a monster reborn for a tuner, right? Black Garden just reborns a level 3 tuner for us. Which, by the way, Black Garden can also revive a non-tuner if we need to, which is Stone Sweeper. Not only does the Line Walker have 800 attack, this one has 1600, so if we just summon twice and give our opponent 2 tokens, this thing brings back a non-tuner as well if you want to. So that's why I think this is also 1600, but yeah. The thing that I'm considering right now is, what if we just don't play, like in this version, I'm not planning to use the Synchro Fusion. We could just use the Earthbound Prison. So if at any point later down the combo, I've used my Black Garden, whatever, I can make a level 7 Synchro. I can just slap down this Earthbound Prison that's in my hand and I don't really need it. And I just pop it with Ancient Fairy to grab a free fountain. Could do that. Keep that in the back of your head. Keep that in the back of your minds. It also could make what's it called? Crystal Wing. The deck could make Crystal Wing. I don't have Crystal Wing, but we could play Crystal Wing. All right. Interesting. That's good progress. Okay. Keep in mind, we have 4 extra deck slots still that we could fill. One of them is probably going to have to be another level 10 Synchro, which I have to, like, I didn't think we were going to use this pattern. That's why I didn't even take it out of my Runick Bestial deck, but I'm going to now, because we have been cooking. Where's this pattern? There it is. All right. Would Zolkin be an option? Let me read up on Zolkin. Ultimaya Zolkin. Cannot be synchro summon. Must be special summoned by sending 2 level 5 or higher monsters you control with the same level to the graveyard. Once per turn, when a spell trap is set, special summon a power tool or a level 7 or 8 synchro from your extra deck. So 2 level 5 or higher with the same level. Reki plus the Maiden. You know what my problem with that is? That you, at that point, we could already be making Baron the Fleur, unless you're talking like after Baron. Right? After Baron. But, yeah. What about Legacia? Legacia is in the pile of options that we have. We have to talk about those a little bit in a second, but yeah. Okay. Cool. The extra deck, currently 11 cards with a 12th card that we absolutely do need another level 10 synchro, I'm pretty sure. So we're gonna have to keep that in mind. We are close to running out of extra space, but we're not quite there yet. We still have some slots open. So we're gonna be using, for now, this, and then one search target for the Line Walker. Either Synchro Fusion or Earthbound Prison. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think I've talked myself into playing Earthbound Prison over Harmonic Synchro Fusion. I think if we decide to go for the Black Garden lines, the Dragostapelia just makes it more complicated, and it also makes us play into Nib more, because now all the perfect sorting that I have done is going to be ruined, because we have to talk about this. If we go Groundkeeper, Line Walker, add Fusion, summon Hugin, right? If I go Synchro Fusion here, make Rose Maiden and Dragostapelia, that's already 5 summons, so I get nibbed right there. And I don't even get to make my Coral Dragon to draw a backup card, right? I don't even get my Coral Dragon for the backup draw. Whereas if I just don't use Synchro Fusion, I just make the Maiden right here. That's summon number 4. I can make Coral Dragon as summon number 5, so I at least get a draw if they nib me. I think that's better. I think I've talked myself into trying to play this version without Harmonic Synchro Fusion. Which, yeah, means we're gonna play Earthbound Prison, which is honestly a better draw going second anyways. Earthbound Prison is a better draw going second anyways, because it's actually okay into boards to draw this card. Like if you go second and you draw Earthbound Prison, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Harmonic is way too good, I think. I don't understand why you think that. I'm gonna be honest with you, because all this card does, like, you already have the means to synchro summon on your board, right? Like, you already have tuner, non-tuner. You can summon the synchro that this card summons anyways, right? But you get a fusion on top, right? So all this card does is it's a 1 card to summon Dragostapelia. That's all this card does. The synchro is not something that this card gets you, because you can make that anyways. This card is basically just equivalent to I summon Dragostapelia. That's all it does, right? Which is, it's not bad, don't get me wrong. You get a free Dragostapelia, it's not a bad deal, but it's not like an insane card. I don't think that's way too good to see play, especially if the Dragostapelia messes with our summon count, our extra deck space, our Nibiru proof stuff. Like, it has downsides to it as well, right? So, and this card going second is just genuinely okay, right? Garura, you can't make Garura with Line Walker plus Hugin. They're dark and light. And not the state. They have nothing in common, like, it doesn't work. So, for now, we'll keep it in the back of my head, okay? I'll keep it in the back of my head that we could add this card back in. For now, I'm just gonna play Earthbound Prison. Alright, so, yeah. Someone in chat also just brought up another good point that we have talked about previously. Someone said, is Earthbound Prisoner Line Walker good enough as a normal summon to play 3 of? Because what you could do, theoretically, is you could just play 1 as a target for Groundkeeper, right? Because obviously drawing Groundkeeper is better than Line Walker, because you just get a free tuner on top. That is something we're gonna have to figure out. If we just draw a Line Walker, are our combos still good? You know, if we just have Line Walker, nothing else, are we still cooking, or is it not strong enough? Because if it's not strong enough, then we might play 1. We might play 1. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I think it probably is, as long as you have a secondary Runick. As long as you have a second Runick like this, right? I'm pretty sure it's gonna be good enough, because what you would do is you would normal summon, add prison, Runick to summon Hugin. You can even discard the prison here as a free fodder for the Hugin, right? Which is cool. Only downside to this play is that you're not playing around draw, because you could summon the Hugin in the draw phase to play around draw, but that's a story for later. Hugin discard for the Fountain. Then make Garden Rose Maiden. Add Black Garden. And I mean, if we have another Runick here, we are just vibing, right? We're just vibing. Here, you just go... Are we vibing? We are somewhat vibing. It's a little awkward, though. How do we get this Line Walker back? It's a little awkward. We can I mean, we have draw 2 with Fountain, but then we haven't resolved Black Garden yet, so we can't get another tuner. Maybe there needs to be another level 5 option for this scenario. Or we just play one Line Walker. It's also possible. It's also possible. But we'll think about that more later as well. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Might want 2 Line Walkers. No, Line Walker is not the one that summons itself from hand. Stone Sweeper is the one that summons itself from hand. This is why Denglong and Synchro Fusion... I mean, in this scenario, it would be better, but I think it's not better in general to play that. I don't agree that Denglong is good in this. Alright. We got this. We got this. And we got this. Another card that would solve that situation, by the way, if you only have Line Walker, would be Vision Resonator. If you had access to Vision Resonator in that case, that's another thing that you have to realize about this card. It is a level 5 or higher dark, so this also enables you to summon Vision Resonator. It's another bonus, and I'm gonna try to put that card into the deck. If we have Vision Resonator and Line Walker, we are cooking, because you just make Garden Rose Maiden, summon Vision Resonator, profit, right? So that we have 11 cards here, dude. Okay, the main deck for this is looking glorious, because we have 11 here. For Runicks, we obviously have 3 tip, 3 curses. I went back on super rare Runicks, by the way. I was playing the ultra rares, but I kind of have changed my mind. I missed the supers. Are you gonna play test 2? I am gonna play test 2. We are gonna be playing this deck against Pack on Thursday, for example. I plan on making gameplay a more regular thing in the channel as well. So we're gonna be seeing more gameplay in the future in general, and with this deck as well, yeah. So let's just, for now, let's assume we're gonna be playing 3 Line Walkers. That would put the minimum deck count 11 plus 17 to 28. That means we have 12 slots to work with, which is a lot of slots. We can play 2 to 3 extra Runicks, we can play Vision Resonators, and we still have room for non-engine. We still have room for non-engine. Hold up. Okay. Dream scenario, we play 3 extra Runicks. I don't know if you play 3 different ones or if you play 2 smiting or 2 dispelling. Probably 2 dispelling. Golden droplet probably too bad. Do this. You forgot harmonic? We've talked about why there's no harmonic enough at this point. I did not forget it. Alright, so we have 18 Runicks. It's beautiful. 18 Runick spells. 20, 31. The minimal resonator package, in my opinion, is 1 Vision Resonator and 2 Crimson Gaia. The reason why you want to play 2 Crimson Gaia, I think always, is that otherwise, let's say you play 1 Crimson Gaia and 3 Vision Resonators or something like that, right? Drawing the Vision Resonator is very nice here, because you just go pitch it for Hugin, search Crimson Gaia, get another Vision Resonator, you're cooking here. But if you draw the 1 Crimson Gaia, I think it feels kind of bad, because you're going to search a Vision Resonator, and then when this Vision Resonator hits the graveyard, it's not going to get value. So Crimson Gaia is not actually that good if you only play 1. That's why I like playing 2 Crimson Gaias at the minimum. Vision Resonator can be played at any ratio between 1 and 3, because the cool thing about Crimson Gaia is that it adds from deck or graveyard. So even if you only play 1 Resonator, you're never gonna run out of targets for a Crimson Gaia. But if you wanted more, you could obviously play more. Like, but just know that even with 1, you're not gonna run out of targets for Crimson Gaia. But at the minimum, if we want to play this engine, which I do want to play it, it's a 3-card engine, which puts us to 20 Runicks, 11, 34 cards. We have 6 non-engine slots still, is what you're telling me. 6 non-engine slots. Dude, I don't even know what we do with all that non-engine slots. If you draw the 1 vision, your Gaia becomes useless. No, you just discard the vision, add the Gaia, add the vision back from the graveyard. It's the simplest thing ever. How is that a problem? How is that a problem? You know what? What if we do... Because Vision Resonator seems to be nice. What if we play 2 Vision Resonators? Just because I do like opening that card. Like, I think it's great to have a free discard for Hugin that replaces itself, yada yada. Love that. Why those Resonator ratios? We just talked about the Resonator ratios. I said questions are okay, but we just talked about it. It's like, go into the VOD and watch like the last minute, literally. The only thing that we have to talk about with Vision Resonator is whether Vision Resonator even makes sense, because so far we have designed our entire extra deck around level 1 and level 3 tuners. So what can we really make here with the Vision Resonators? And I think that's where the last couple slots are going to come in. Because if we want to play Vision Resonator, I think it doesn't really work with this extra deck, right? Because, like, it doesn't make Metal Marcher with anything. It doesn't make Rose Maiden with anything unless we play freaking Munin, but we're not going to do that. It doesn't make the level 6 Synchros because, I mean, it does with Gary, but that's not really a feasible combo. It doesn't make Croc. It doesn't really make Baron in the way we're setting up the deck. So if we want to play Vision Resonator, we'll have to dedicate the last couple extra deck slots to Vision Resonator. We would have to dedicate the last couple extra deck slots to Vision Resonator, which I think with 11 cards in the extra deck right now, I think it would be possible to do that. I think it would be possible to add cards for that. One thing that's also worth noting, I'm just double checking. I believe all of the main deck Earthbound monsters only lock you for the rest of the turn. Yes. These lock you for the rest of the turn. The only card that locks you for the entire turn is the harmonic synchro fusion, which means, and you guys are the budget players are not gonna like that, but it does mean that hypothetically, if we were to, like, we could play SP Little Knight and Typhon. In case our Groundkeeper gets negated, we're not locked out of anything. But even if we end up doing that, it is, I just want to point out, I think this deck is completely viable without those cards, but it is an option that we have to keep in mind now that we have taken out the harmonic synchro fusion. It's probably worth to play an SP. It might be worth. I'm not saying, maybe not, but you could. Okay. All right. We don't have to decide on which non-engine we play right away. That's not something we have to do. That's something we're gonna do. I think that's like the last step of deck building. First, I want to figure out the exact thing the deck is supposed to do, and then the non-engine discussion is gonna be towards the end. Another thing that's worth pointing out is we do have the option of cutting, like, we could cut some amount of Line Walkers for more Vision Resonators if we think it's better to open Vision Resonator than Line Walker. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I think if we open none of these cards, no Groundkeeper, no Stone Sweeper, I would rather have a Line Walker than nothing. Like, no tuner access whatsoever. But yeah. Hold up. What if you activate Harmonic Synchro Fusion after the Synchro Summon of the Maiden and then summon Coral and Mud Dragon? Okay. It's... I've said it briefly earlier, but I'm okay going over it. Okay, so what you're saying is Groundkeeper, Line Walker, add Synchro Fusion, summon Hugin, make Garden Rose Maiden, and then, because one of my points was that you play around Nibiru better. So the first thing is you can't even summon Dragostapelia here. You would have to summon Mud Dragon. Which is possible. Right? Like, you could, in theory, you don't even need, hold up. If we make Mud Dragon, we don't even need a second Runick to get to Baron. But then again, I don't think Coral Dragon doesn't draw, though. Coral Dragon doesn't draw if we make it with Harmonic Synchro Fusion, is the problem. So you would need to run a different level 6 Synchro, which I don't think is worth it. Yeah. Yeah, not a bad idea, though. You can summon the Earth Fusion. Yeah, but at this point, why doesn't he draw? Because it's not treated as a Synchro Summon. Harmonic Synchro Fusion special summons the thing. And Coral Dragon only draws if this special summon, Synchro Summon card is sent to the graveyard. Okay. We need to talk about Line Walker more. I think, is what it comes down to. So, the main question, in order to figure out whether we're gonna run 1 Line Walker or 3 Line Walkers, is how good is it to open Line Walker? If we don't have one of these, what can we do with Line Walker? So, Line Walker adds Prison. I'm just gonna put the fusion monsters here immediately without saying you need a Runick, obviously. Summon Hugin. At this point, we would be... Let's assume we try to keep the extra deck as slim as possible, so we make the same Synchro. We make Garden Rose Maiden. How do we proceed from this point on? What cards can we have to extend from here? If we have Vision Resonator, that's phenomenal, right? If we have Vision Resonator, we can definitely cook from here. We need some other extra deck options, but we could make, for example, this is where we could go Special Vision Resonator, make Ancient Fairy Dragon, pop our Earthbound Prison to get a what's it called, another fountain, even if they negate our Hugin, for example. Like this would be insane if we have Vision Resonator, right? But what if we don't? I mean, okay, so how many cards do we actually have that extend this? So if we draw, obviously, if we draw Sweeper or Groundkeeper, doesn't show up. If we play 4 Resonators, that's another 10 cards. That's 10 cards that make opening Line Walker. How about Fable Cerberell instead of Vision and Gaia? It's also a Fiend and a good discard. I don't see how it's better though. Does Harmonic Synchro count as 1 summon or 2 for Nib? I think they're summoned at the same time. But Nibiru doesn't count the amount of summons. It's just how many monsters. That's why it doesn't matter. Like it's on, like, even if you Pendulum summon 5 at the same time, you still get nibbed. That's what I just checked. I was confused by how many were asking that question that I second guessed myself, but no, it doesn't matter. The specific problem with opening Line Walker in this version... The specific problem with opening Line Walker in this version is that if we... Like, we can't get the Line Walker back from the graveyard with the Black Garden. It's very frustrating, because as long as the Garden Rose Maiden is on the field, because it's a plat monster itself, you can't bring back the Line Walker. Because Black Garden has to destroy all the plants. That's what we need the solution for. But I don't think there is one. I don't think there is one. Frecky for Chaos Angel? Frecky for Chaos Angel would work. We can't make a link. But Frecky... Okay, let's think this through. Hand is just Line Walker and 4 Runicks. Line Walker, 4 Runicks. Line Walker adds... Okay, this is our hand. Normal summon Line Walker, add Prison. Summon, activate Runick. Summon Hugin. Discard Prison, whatever, we don't need it. Grab Fountain. Make Garden Rose Maiden. Adds Garden. Activate Fountain. Activate Flashing Fire. Summon Frecky. Draw 2 with Fountain. Draw 2 with Fountain. Activate Black Garden. Make Chaos Angel. Where is Chaos Angel? Now this requires 2 cards to be added to our extra deck, but I'm not too mad about Chaos Angel. Like, it's only really the Frecky that I don't want to play. The cool thing is, like, this Chaos Angel is going to be halved by the Black Garden, but it's protected by battle anyway, so that hardly matters. So Black Garden gives them 1 token. We can now blow up the Black Garden to bring back the Line Walker. Bring back the Line Walker and play from here. It's not too bad. right? Like, if we have more Runicks, we can keep playing from here. Also, keep in mind that drawing Stone Sweeper with Fountain is also another extender. Yeah. Frecky is an SP out going second. That's not the worst idea. Yeah, it's not too bad. This would be one way to justify more line walkers, because we could start playing from here, right? That would be one way to solve this problem. Another problem would just be another solution could be to have another level 5 synchro instead that makes a better line happen, but I don't know if there is one that I actually like. What can you make with Sweeper plus Line Walker? Okay, Sweeper plus Line Walker makes... There's different options that we have not explored. Level 8 synchros that we can make include the Earthbound itself, which is just a reborn for Earthbounds. You have Omega. You can theoretically make Axel Stardust, but in this case, it won't have anything to revive unless you draw the... If you draw Vision Resonator at some point, then it's fine. Or Omega, right? Those would be the kind of options that I like for level 8. Because especially if we're playing Frecky, I think it's very important we have level 8 synchro, a level 8 synchro somewhere, right? Because it could be even in the standard combos, it could come up that we have a line walker that we bring back from Black Garden, and we just summon out like Frecky, right? So that's something that can definitely happen. Yeah. Okay, that would be one way to fix this problem. Frecky plus Chaos Angel would be one way to fix this problem. I like that somewhat. I'm not in love with it. I'm not in love with this line, but I think there are advantages to playing 3 line walkers over other things like because the question is, if you only play these 6 as your good starters, right? If your really broken combo only works with these 6 cards, then the deck is a little vulnerable. So we have to try and figure out other lines for when you don't have these, right? Another cool thing about opening Line Walker, I just want to point that out. If you normal summon Line Walker and you search Earthbound Prison specifically over Harmonic Synchro Fusion, even if you have a bunch of Runicks, because Earthbound Prison gives you another normal summon, if you draw these later with Fountain, you can still do the full thing, right? You can still do the full thing. How is Frecky and SP out? Because Frecky is the only Runick that has attack points. It's the only Runick that has attack points, so you can just go battle phase, summon it, attack. That's why. You can do the same thing technically with Sleipnir also has attack. Oh, okay, Sleipnir, it's the only Runick that has more attack than SP, because Sleipnir is 15. True. What battle phase? Dude, if you go second and you haven't used the Runick first, you have a battle phase. You go into the battle phase and they are quick play. Come, this is basic. Come on. All right. Frecky. Chaos Angel puts our extra deck to 13. 13 is our extra deck. And Line Walker. Line Walker could also just be a 2-of. Because I can see scenarios where you want a second Line Walker. For example, you like the one that I just talked about, I think is a relatively realistic scenario. Because if you think about it, if you open Line Walker, but none of these 6 cards, there's a relatively high chance that you can resolve Fountain to draw. and you're gonna draw one of these cards, because you draw like 1, 2, 3 cards from your deck, where it's like 33 cards or something like that. After you've deck thinned Fountain and Prison and Garden, you draw 2 to 3 cards from that. You're very likely to find these. So something you can do, if you start with Linewalker, combo a little bit, keep your Prison in hand, draw with Fountain. If you draw one of these, you can still go Earthbound Prison, second normal the Keeper, and get another Linewalker from the deck. I think that specifically is why 2 Linewalkers might just be the ideal number. Did we follow that thought process? Was that clear? Why I think it's 2 Linewalkers potentially and not 3? Oh no, it summons from the graveyard anyways. Then you could play 1. It summons from the graveyard. You're right. It does summon from the graveyard. This guy summons from the graveyard, so you can do the same thing with 1. You can do the same thing with 1 hypothetically. All right. It is even better. Yeah, it is even better. That makes it so. It also makes it so that if you only play 1 Linewalker and you draw these 2 together, you can just pitch the Linewalker for Hugin and Groundkeeper it back, which it could be awkward. The only scenario now that I can think of where you need 2 Linewalkers would be if you draw these 2 together and you decide to go Linewalker, normal summon, add Prison, activate Prison, normal summon Keeper, and you want to summon another Linewalker for whatever reason later, right? Because that is something you can do while the other Linewalker is still on the board, because even then you could still put it into graveyard. 2 to play around potential Bestials. It's true. If 1 Linewalker is like the standard and people have a Bestial on it, then yeah. I can see this going anywhere between 1 and 3 Linewalkers. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I'm thinking like Linewalker is an okay draw, definitely. Like you still make plays happen, but I would still very much rather open with these. But we can't really increase the number of these by a whole lot, right? So the other question would be, let's say, Linewalker. We could play more Vision Resonators if we think it's better to open Vision Resonator than Linewalker, for example. Like what is better, Runick's plus Vision or Runick's plus Linewalker? Right? Is another question. That's fair to ask. But yeah. Does the level 1 Earthbound work on Special Summon? It does work on Special Summon, and I believe you're gonna say 1 for 1, but you don't have enough monsters for 1 for 1, right? So I'm not sure exactly what else. If you have another way to find one of these 2 more consistently, and don't say Small World. They're all fiends. Yeah, they're all fiends. They're all fiends. They're all fiends. What are you doing if you don't draw Runicks? That's a very interesting question. You probably lose in your Runick deck with 20 Runicks. Even though it is worth pointing out that we've even the Groundkeeper, even if you actually draw 0 Runicks, the Groundkeeper can draw you a card by going Groundkeeper into Stone Sweeper into Stardust Charge Warrior. So even if you do not draw a single Runick, you can make a Charge Warrior in this build, which is funny. Tour Guide doesn't work. Tour Guide doesn't work because Tour Guide negates the Linewalker. And it also can't be used as synchro material with Tour Guide, so that's just not working. Alright, so we have established we are going to be playing 2 Fountains. We're going to be playing anywhere between probably 17 or 18 Runick Quick Plays. We're going to be playing at least these 9 cards, maybe 11. And we're probably going to try to play some amount of Vision Resonators. And our extra deck currently has 13 cards. 13 cards, and we still need like probably one or like two other synchros. Like I think we still, what we don't have for levels is we don't have a second level 10 that isn't Chaos Angel, because you don't want to make Chaos Angel turn 1 most of the time. The Chaos Angel here would be mostly for going second and for the lines where we only have Line Walker, but it wouldn't be the goal to summon the Chaos Angel. So we have Baron as a level 10, but we don't have a secondary level 10 yet. And we also don't have level 8 and level 7 yet, which level 8 and 7 are, I think, important if we try to incorporate the Vision Resonator into the deck. Right? So we could play, I mean, it's probably for level 10 options. Level 10 options, this pattern or Chengying. Chengying is the much easier one to make. This pattern would require us to do something like we don't have a non-tuner dragon at the moment. We would have to put that into the extra deck. Like with we would have to make Ancient Fairy, pretty much just Ancient Fairy, like the only real option for that. Crimson Dragon, if we can make level 12. We could Crimson Dragon out the Dispatter too, yeah. Theoretically. Like if we have a world where, if there's a world where we go Baron and then a level 12 Synchro, that could be a way to make Dispatter, yeah. The thing is, I do think level 7 Synchro is something that I want to incorporate. I don't know exactly what the best line would be. But the scenario where you bring back a Line Walker from Black Garden and then you summon out a Gary or a Freki. Like we need something. I'll just, you know what? Let's play out an example hand. A really good one, if uninterrupted. Let's play out an example hand uninterrupted like this, right? And this is an ideal scenario, but your extra deck still needs to have something ready for ideal scenarios. So let's go through this real quick. In this scenario, we go summon Groundkeeper, Line Walker, grab Earthbound Prison, right? We're just gonna see at which point we are missing a specific extra deck monster. Here, we would go Dispelling to summon Hugin. Hugin, let's discard a Runick for now, because we might want the Earthbound Prison to pop with something like Ancient Fairy later. But keep in mind, we could just discard this one here. We get Fountain from this. Right? We make Rose Maiden to grab ourselves the... Where did I put the Black Garden? Where's the garden? I'm gardenless. Didn't I put the garden into... Oh, here. Here, we said earlier that we want to go into Coral Dragon first, just in case of your opponent having Nibiru. And you're gonna activate Fountain and activate a Runick. In this case here, the Fountain would draw us 3 cards. Because we discarded a Runick earlier. Let's assume we didn't discard a Runick. Let's say it's just 2, right? Here. If our opponent has Nibiru, they have to Nibiru here, because otherwise we're gonna have a Baron the Fleur, right? And even if they Nibiru us here, I'm gonna repeat it once for the people that weren't here earlier. Even if we get Nibiru'd here, the reason why I think this line is good is because this is relatively Nibiru proof. If we get nibbed here, these 2 get sent to the graveyard. And we draw a card for Coral Dragon, we get a nib token. And we still have Garden Rose Maiden, and I guess I should move my graveyard up here. We still have Garden Rose Maiden, which is from the graveyard. You can banish this card to revive a dragon synchro. So the Garden Rose Maiden can bring back Coral Dragon again to synchro with, and we have the Black Garden in hand, which also brings us back another tuner, right? So even if we get nibbed here, we still have plenty of synchro access after we get nibbed. And if we don't get nibbed, we're gonna have Baron, right? Let's just assume we don't get nibbed. We are vibing here with Gary and Coral Dragon. We make Baron. We draw a card from the Coral Dragon. We're gonna have to talk about at some point what these cards could be in the form of extenders, because that's another cool thing about the Earthbounds, is that this guy does not only search your normal summon, but it's also an extender, because if there's a field spell, we can special summon it from the hand. So at any point, if we draw Stone Sweeper, it'd be an additional extender. If we draw more Earthbounds, tuners, we could at any point just activate Prison and normal summon them as well to get more tuners into rotation. So both, like, it's all of the Earthbounds are actually extenders if you search the Prison. I'm liking the Prison is better than freaking the Prison is better than the thing, than Harmonic, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so we are here. 6 cards in hand, Baron, Fountain. And this is where you would stop if you had no other extenders in the hand, right? You could stop, rather. Actually, no, we would order it slightly differently, right? If we wanted to keep playing here, we would... So, Fountain draws after summoning Giri. Yes. At which point do we want to activate Black Garden is the question. So we're gonna summon the Giri to draw with the Fountain. I guess we're gonna have to make a small Baron then, which is okay. I guess we're just gonna activate Black Garden. Although if we already have... Yeah. We already have a Runick. We could also just have the Runick later. Either way, let's just assume, like, let's just do this. Okay, so summon Baron. This Baron would be halved by the Black Garden, but there's probably ways around it with different combos. So Black Garden halves the Baron. Where did I put the token? Gives your opponent a token wherever. Now, once that's done, Black Garden blows up that token, gives us a Line Walker, right? And this is where, if we have another Runick, we need to think about what we want to do with that Runick. Because ideally, I mean, we're gonna summon Giri, I'm assuming, to add back Fountain? Question mark? And then what? Right? What? With this Gary, at the very minimum, we can Rose Maiden, bring back Coral Dragon, make Cheng Ying. Cheng Ying can be made here. But then the main question remains, what do we turn this Line Walker into? What do we turn this Line Walker into? The easiest answer is probably a level 7 or 8 Synchro. Right? Because we either have to, we can combine the Line Walker with anything really. You can make a level 12 with Sleipnir if you want to. You can make a level 8 with Preki. We can make Hyper Librarian with Hugin if we want to, or we can make a level 7 with Gary. Right? Ancient Fairy would get us infinite fountains, basically, because we could pop Earthbound Prison to grab another fountain without having to discard for Hugin a second time. It would also summon... I mean, Sleipnir would just let us make Crimson Dragon into this pattern as well. Right? Sleipnir. Crimson Dragon, this pattern. Lets you also do Calamity. Wait, how do we Calamity? Without another level 12? Will we get a video of this? I'm planning to make this a video. Obviously, as you can see, the process of building a deck pretty much from scratch is a rather long one. I hope you find it interesting. I'm just gonna have to wait and see how people are gonna receive this sort of thing on YouTube, and how we even turn it into a well-edited YouTube video, because that's probably gonna take a while. Hard summon Calamity? I mean, hard summoning Calamity on my turn doesn't seem that great. Does it? Okay, so... I think a level 7 Synchro is necessary. For 2 reasons. Number 1, if I go here, Baron, Linewalker... Actually, no. Maybe not. Baron, Linewalker... We summon another Giri. We summon another Giri to make a level 7 Synchro, which could be Ancient Fairy. The cool thing about Ancient Fairy is that we can also special summon more stuff from our hand, like a Vision Resonator, like another Vision Resonator, or more Linewalkers, more level 1 tuners. But I think we probably need to at some point call it a day with the amount of extension, but we don't want our extra deck to be completely empty after turn 1. Is there any Synchro that we can make that would recycle some of the stuff in our graveyard? That's one way I would... That's one thing I would like to have as an option. Is there like a way... I don't think that exists. Like a way to recycle Omega? But Omega doesn't hit the graveyard, does it? I'm mostly worried about recycling some of my fusions, but anything else would be nice. The cool thing is that the level doesn't really matter, because we can get any level with the Runicks, almost any level. We have a level 3 tuner and a level 1 tuner, and we can summon whichever non-tuner level we want. Right? Like it'd be that, but I'm not aware. I am not aware of another way to recycle your fusions or anything like that. Can we do something funny with duality? I am afraid that duality is not gonna fit in the extra deck as well. All right, somewhat viable options. Let me see. Omega, Axel Stardust. I don't think we're gonna play Axel Stardust. I mean, Omega seems okay, because Omega can also help trigger Chengying if you don't have a fitting Runick. Like if we played these two, for example, it would work, but then we don't have a level 7 Synchro. But then, I mean, we don't have to make a level 7 Synchro. Because the one thing I was thinking about in this scenario here, where if I have, let's say I have Baron and Linewalker, and I still have my Rose Maiden and Coral Dragon in the graveyard, right? Like, why would I go Gary here? Why would I go Gary to make Ancient Fairy here? Because the problem then becomes, if I Garden Rose Maiden back my Coral Dragon later, I don't have another Gary anymore to turn it into a level 10. So I would have to turn, I guess I could turn my Coral Dragon into an Omega with another Hugin. That's possible. But I think it's like smoother if we, for example, used Reki here to make Omega. And then later on, we use the second Gary to make Changing. So we end on like this, right? You would end on that. Right? So the extra deck for that would include adding Chang, which are, and you add 2 generic Liga cards. The only problem with this, and it is a relatively big problem that we have to think about. Dude, deck building is just all about rediscovering new problems that your deck has and trying to solve them. All right, so if this is ours, if this would be our extra deck, and it's now it's 15, unless I miscounted. 6, 10, yeah, it's 15. This is Charge Warrior. This would be the extra deck. And the one problem that I have right now is that we do not have a level 7 Synchro. And without a level 7 Synchro altogether, drawing Linewalker, even if you have a Vision Resonator, you can't really do anything. Because your Linewalker makes Garden Rose, then you special summon Vision, and you can't make a level 7 Synchro. Omega Plip, thank you for the 4 months. Also, everyone else who's been subscribing, I see you. I appreciate you a ton. I'm just lost in the sauce right now, so I'm not reading every individual one of you, but let it be known, I'm incredibly thankful for all of you guys' support. Thank you, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. I believe the best level 7 Synchro to have for this scenario, and I'll show you once again what I mean by this scenario, is, so we open Linewalker because we just weren't lucky enough to find one of these, right? And we search Prison. We search Prison. We summon Hugin. Right? We make Garden Rose Maiden. And it grabs us the garden. Grabs us the garden, right? And we have Vision Resonator. Because that's one way to get out of this situation. Summon Vision. I think the best thing by far is summon Vision Resonator. Make Ancient Fairy. It has to be Ancient Fairy. Ancient Fairy grabs you. Well, first of all, Vision Resonator grabs you this, right? You can then. You are okay before you even. Okay, no, you go. Vision here. Activate Black Garden. Make Ancient Fairy. It has to be Ancient Fairy. Your opponent gets a token, which I have lost once again. Lost in the sauce, the token. There it is. Now, you use Black Garden to bring back Linewalker, right? By blowing up the token. Then, Crimson Gaia can add another Vision Resonator. This is level 10, which is this pattern, by the way, or Baron, if you want to. On top, you can Ancient Fairy can special summon another Vision Resonator for more tuner access. Like this. Hold up. This pattern. Dude, the extra is going to be tight. Garden Rose Maiden effect. Bring back Ancient Fairy Dragon. Make Croc to draw a card. This pattern, bring back Garden Rose Maiden for follow-up, because on the next turn, if they clear this board, you can bring back this pattern with Garden Rose Maiden. Also, on top of all that, we could have activated Prison, popped it with Ancient Fairy to get Fountain, even if they negate our Hugin with a hand trap. Even if they ashed or impermed our Hugin, this line gets Fountain. We have to try and fit the Ancient Fairy in, dude. The Ancient Fairy seems juicy. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of want to play more Vision Resonator access in that case. Because Vision Resonators just seems like a good solution to a lot of the problems. Like whenever you get hand trapped on one of your normal summons or whatever, like you just use the Vision Resonator as extenders. It's a great draw later on. It's a great draw later down the line if you draw with Fountain. It's a great discard for Hugin in your opening hand. Yeah. Why this pattern and not Baron? You could make Baron. We could very well just have Baron. What I'm trying to bring across is we have to try and fit Ancient Fairy in this thing. I feel like with the amount of field spell juggling that we can do, that seems really good. And I kind of want to maximize on the Vision Resonator stuff a little bit. Which, who could have guessed, leads to a different problem. Two other problems. Dude, there's so many problems. Well, we're fixing them. We're getting there. Why do we need Chaos Angel then? Well, Chaos Angel would be in the case we don't have Vision Resonator. That's the problem. Like, if we don't have... That's another thing. If we don't have Vision Resonator, and maybe that line is not very likely, because like if we play a lot of Vision Resonators, you're right, we might cut the Chaos Angel and maybe even the Frecky, because we have to make room for that somehow. But the initial idea behind the Chaos Angel and the Frecky was the following. The initial question was, what happens if you just have Line Walker, no other extenders, only Runicks, right? And the answer to that question was, you're gonna summon Line Walker, you're gonna grab Earthbound Prison, you're gonna activate a Runick to summon Hugin. To grab Fountain, right? Whether you're gonna get it or not is a different question. But if you have another Runick, you can now go into the Maiden, grab Garden, right? And the problem here is that you are out of tuners, right? You're out of tuners, and you cannot use Black Garden to get back a tuner while the Garden Rose Maiden is on the board. Because for Black Garden to revive a tuner, you have to pop all the plant monsters on the board, and they have to have the same attack as the tuner in the graveyard, right? And Line Walker is 800, so you have to bring back Line Walker as the first thing, basically, right? Appreciate that, thank you so much. You have to get this Garden Rose Maiden off the board. Instead of going Hugin, can you go Gary and Ancient Fairy Dragon, maybe? Well, yeah, you can, but then you have the same problem, no? Like, hold up. So the problem is, Black Garden can't bring back Line Walker. Because you have to get rid of the Garden Rose Maiden first. But getting rid of the Garden Rose Maiden without a tuner, the only way it was possible was activate Flashing Fire, bring out Frecky, make Chaos Angel, And now you can keep playing because the Black Garden can now bring back the Line Walker. Right? That was the original idea of the Freki plus Chaos Angel line, right? And I believe someone in chat just said, okay, what if you summon Geary instead? Let's think it through, and I'll tell you why I'm pretty sure that's not better. Because what happens then, it's not going to work out, but it's a good thought experiment. Line Walker adds Earthbound Prison. So you're telling me to go summon Geary and make Ancient Fairy. To which I say, and then what? Like, what do I do here? Like, I need another Runick to even make it work. The problem is that because you haven't summoned Hugin, you don't have Fountain. So like, okay, Ancient Fairy Dragon can get you the Fountain, sure, but still, then what? Because now you don't have the Black Garden to get a tuner back. So what you would have to do, and what you could do actually, is you would need 2 Runicks though in that case. But if you have 2 Runicks, if you have another Runick, what you can do here is Earthbound Prison, Ancient Fairy, pop the Earthbound Prison, search Black Garden, activate Black Garden, activate Slumber, summon another Runick, probably Hugin now. Black Garden, blow up your opponent's token, bring back Line Walker, make Garden Rose Maiden. Dude, the music is fitting. Garden Rose Maiden, bring back Black Garden from your graveyard. You have Fountain in hand now. And Black Garden is soft once per turn, by the way. So you could do that. You can do the Revive a Tuner again now, if you wanted to. You still need more Runicks. But, yeah. You would still need more Runicks here. But instead of making this, you could have also just made like a Baron and left this in the graveyard. You know, like you get a thingy here. But yeah, I think Ancient Fairy needs to be here. Long story short, Ancient Fairy needs to be here. And we need to think about what we take out for it, because yeah, I think we're very close. I think it does work. The extra deck is just incredibly tight. The extra deck is just incredibly tight, and I have good news for all the budget players. I don't think we can even fit the Little Knight. I think we can stop considering the Little Knight because it simply will not fit. All right, so mandatory, absolutely mandatory. We need that. We might need a second level 10. We might not though. Because what if instead of going for another level 10, we go for like different stuff like Croc or something like that? I don't know. We could think about it. So this is what, 12? This is just 12 cards. No, 6. It's 13. 13. I mean, in theory, when do you make Stardust Charge Warrior? Okay. These two, Stardust Charge, Marcher, or these three, don't show up in specific combos. I'll show you in a second why I think those are mandatory, but good question, because those don't show up in the standard combo lines. And the same is actually true for Sleipnir. There's a world where we can cut Sleipnir, but I don't like that world. It's not the world I want to live in. Okay. So in theory, if those were our 13 extra deck cards, we could consider just throwing in a level 8 and one level 10, which in this case, we can only fit one of these. And that would probably be Changing or Dispatter. There's a world where you can Dispatter Omega twice, by the way. Just saying. But that'd be very convoluted. Like, that would require you to have everything, like everything. But okay. Extra deck is gonna be tight. It would be completely solved if we had 17 extra deck spots, but that's just some extra work we need to do. The reason why, and maybe, hey, let's reconsider our thought process from earlier. Maybe we can cut one of these guys. Maybe the reasons why I threw these in, maybe we have better solutions for that by now. So, reason for Charge Warrior and Croc was if we open. So Charge Warrior, first things first, if we open 0 Runicks, which is very rare, if we open 0 Runicks and we open Groundkeeper, we can go Groundkeeper into Stone Sweeper into Charge Warrior to at least draw 1 card. Not the most important part of Charge Warrior, but is technically true. The other reason for Charge Warrior, what was the other reason? Yeah, it was that the more realistic one is if we only have 1 Runick. If we only have 1 Runick, we go Groundkeeper, Linewalker, Prison, Summon Hugin, right? Summon Hugin, grab, discard Prison, maybe not. You can discard a different card in your hand if you want to. Search Fountain, right? Make Rose Maiden, and now we get the Garden, right? And the thing is here, making Coral Dragon only makes sense if we have another Runick, because if we have no other Runick, making Coral doesn't really do you anything good. So what we can do if we don't have another Runick here is we activate Black Garden, Synchro into Charge Warrior, Chainlink 1 Black Garden, Chainlink 2 Charge Warrior, draw 1 card, Black Garden, blow up the opponent's token to bring back Linewalker, Croc, draw another card. Right? So, I think it's important to have a line when you only draw 1 Runick. I feel like. And it's not the greatest end board, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it's an okay line. I've won Runick games with worse openers. I've won Runick games with worse openers because, I mean, hey, we still have, this is a 6-card hand we still have, because we did this off of just 1 Runick and Earthbound, right? So we have 6 cards in hand, and that means we have a pop with this, we have a fountain, we have 5, we have like a lot of cards, it's fine. These lines don't play around roll. Yeah, it's a Runick deck. Most likely it's not gonna play around roll. I mean, you can do this in the standby phase, the Hugin, you can do in the draw phase to play around roll, but the like this is gonna search, then you're gonna get rolled. Yeah, okay, that's fine. It also, spoilers, it also doesn't play under shifter that well, but yeah. And this is why I believe the Croc and the Charge Warrior are mandatory. Do we agree on that? Do we agree that having this line available for when we only have 1 Runick is probably too important to cut those 2 cards? Especially because, like, they can come up in random scenarios. Like, you know, there's definitely random worlds where you have, like, a way to summon Croc to draw an extra card and stuff like that. Like, I think they're gonna be coming up. Like, Ancient Fairy Dragon plus Vision Resonator also is gonna make Croc, for example. Like, I think Croc is gonna come up a decent amount. So there's that, right? The other 2, Marcher, the initial reason for Marcher, and I think it's also a good enough reason to play the card. The initial reason for Marcher is that if your Groundkeeper gets hand trapped and you don't have a level 3 Synchro, you get cooked, pretty much. Curtains. It is curtains. This is Charge Warrior, yes. Because I mean, what you could do what you could do in this scenario is you could summon level 9 into Baron or something like that, but then you don't have Fountain, and I'm gonna be honest with you, playing a Runick deck without Fountain is not pleasant. So we need to find Fountain. So we need a level 3 Synchro to be able to search Fountain this way and still keep playing after. Long story short, right? And there's two choices only in my opinion, and they are it's either Metal Marcher or Samsara Sorokat. One of the two has to be it. One of the two has to be it. And honestly, Samsara Sorokat might even be better. Because also, there's one other thing I just noticed. Samsara Sorokat has 1600 attack. So you can also bring that back with Blackguard. Oh. Hold up. It might be Samsara Sorokat. It might be Samsara Sorokat. Because, hear me out. If your Groundkeeper gets stopped, you don't have Linewalker in rotation anywhere, right? You don't have Linewalker in the graveyard for an easy Black Garden revive. But this thing has 1600 attack. So we can bring this back instead as another tuner. Now, obviously, you can also just bring back Garden Rose Maiden. That's a 1600 attack monster as well. But it's not a tuner, so it's not as valuable. So we... Okay, hear me out. You go... These two... If your Linewalker... If your Groundkeeper gets stopped, right? Groundkeeper gets stopped. You make Sorokat. You need another Runick, but you always need... You do need another Runick in these situations when you get hand trapped on the Groundkeeper. Which is why we're going to be playing so many. You make... another Hugin, right? Either grab your second Fountain and draw, or if your first Hugin got hand trapped, you get your first Fountain here. You make Garden Rose Maiden, and you get Black Garden here. This needs 2 more Runicks though. This is why it's worse. Yeah, it's worse, I think. I think it's worse. Because if we want to continue here, we need another Runick. And even then, we can't revive the Sorokat yet. Yeah, no, it's not Sorokat. It's not Sorokat. It would have been nice if it was Sorokat, because Sorokat also recycles extra deck monster in the graveyard. Yeah, it would recycle. Unless there's a different Synchro we can summon that would be worth it. But I don't think so. So I'm thinking, at this point though, we would be changing the extra deck up a little bit too much. We don't have the space for that, I don't think. But one thing we could do is, instead of the second Hugin, we could be summoning a level 5, the Freki. Then we can turn the Samsara and the Freki into we make Axel Stardust, which can bring back this, which then makes Proc. Draw 1. Then Sorokat can bring back itself by shuffling back the Axel to make like Legacia to draw 2. Like it would draw 2 cards then. The combo would draw 2 cards, but that'd be it. With Groundkeeper plus 2 Runicks if the Groundkeeper gets hand trapped. But it would require Axel Stardust and Legacia. The Metal Marcher, on the other hand, with 1 more Runick already does plenty of things, right? Like you make these 2, Metal Marcher brings this back. Another Runick can summon whatever here, really. But I actually think it's very annoying that Metal Marcher makes whatever you summon with it a tuner. It's very awkward. Well, it's fine if you have another Runick. But if you... Like here, we already need 1 Runick, right? Like this. But if we now make Garden Rose Maiden, That's a tuner now, so we can't synchro with this. It's very annoying. Very annoying in this situation. Actually, you know what? If we get hand trapped on the groundkeeper, we are... but we don't even play SP. I was like, we are not locked out of SP, so we can just make SP, but that would also take an extra deck slot. But it wouldn't be outrageous to just play like an SP instead of like the Metal Marcher and all that. You can synchro into the Vanadium. Yeah. Stone Sweeper or any... Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe I'm tunnel visioning too hard on this particular problem. Right? Like here. Because... like, there's so many things we can have that makes this work out, right? Like, we can have, like, Vision Resonator probably fixes it at some point. The Stone Sweeper fixes it. Stone Sweeper fixes it. Enough Runicks also fix everything. No matter if we play Marcher or Shamizan. If we have enough Runicks, it all works out. Runicks fix everything, man. So it's like, realistically, most of the hands are gonna be fine here anyways, even if we don't have the most obscure extra deck options. Which that's one of the things you would find out in practice. But I still think a level 3 synchro is necessary. What we do after with that is, it depends on the extenders in our hand. But one of these two is going to be mandatory, I believe. Because if you just get hand trapped on the groundkeeper, you know, that's a problem. And it needs to be with Hugin as well. It needs to be a level 3 because very, very often you're going to summon Hugin in your draw phase. Right? You're gonna summon your Hugin in the draw phase to play around Droll and Lockbird. So it's not like you still have the choice to pick a different level now in the main phase, right? Like, it's too late. No, you've already played around Droll with this a little bit. And then you summon this, it gets hand trapped because maybe they have Effect Bailer, which they couldn't use in the draw phase on the Hugin, right? We have to keep playing from here somehow. I think Metal Marcher is the only thing that really does it. Right? So, yeah. So the only one that's arguably something you could skip is Sleipnir. But I'm gonna be honest, I think Sleipnir, even though it doesn't come up in any of the standard combos, is gonna come up way too often in like back and forth, whatever. Like, even if, and especially if you have more extenders, like you can just Groundkeeper, Sleipnir, Baron before doing anything. Like, that seems way too good. It's way too good. So, long story short, mandatory. The only line that I'm not convinced is mandatory is the Freki with Chaos Angel line. But I'll be honest with you, Freki seems like a good inclusion anyways. Freki seems good regardless of if we play that line or not, because like making a level 8 synchro with Line Walker seems important. All right, Baron needs to be here. I think Ancient Fairy needs to be here. That. No! Don't put Fountain to 0. All right. This. This card would be good. All right. So we have 3, 6, 7, 13 cards I consider mandatory. And we have 2 more choices. And I hate to break it to you, but there's another problem. if we want to focus on a decent amount of resonators, I think another card that would be good is this guy. This little guy would also be cool. So we have to decide on 2 out of all these. That would be important to do. Because I'm thinking if you open like you can just make Herald very early in a couple different situations, right? But yeah, we would just have to see what comes up in testing games actually, which we're gonna have a testing match with this deck against Pack in 2 days. All right. In order to make the main deck as consistent as possible, I think what I'm gonna do is play 20 Runicks, including Fountain, so 18 Runick quick play spells, which is what I already had earlier. So this is, it's basically all the staple Runicks at 3 plus these 3, right? So that's 20 cards. I think we're okay playing 2 line walkers in the beginning, maybe even 1, which I'm gonna be honest with you, we could solve this entire situation if we just play 1 line walker. We might not need like the Chaos Angel and all that, right? The lines that revolve around just drawing line walker, they become way less relevant when you play less line walkers. And I'm getting the feeling that the Vision Resonators are good. On another note, I find it a little bit awkward to think about the Vision Resonators because the only situation where the Vision Resonators seem like they actually help me was the scenario with just Linewalker, right? Because with this extra deck, with this current extra deck, if I just draw Runick plus Resonator, I don't even have a Synchro to go into. Like, I would have to play a level 4 Synchro for that to even do anything. If I don't play Herald, if I just draw Vision Resonator plus Runicks, it doesn't even make a play. Right? So on the one hand, they help me fix the hands where I get hand trapped, or the hands where I only have Linewalker, but in my quote-unquote normal hands, they aren't really super necessary, right? Do you feel what I'm saying? Like, is that understandable? It's a weird situation for the Resonators right now, because they seem to be only making my good hands even better. Making Herald before normaling sounds nice, well, but it doesn't do that even. It doesn't even do that because you can only special Vision Resonator when you have a level 5 or higher Dark, and it doesn't work like that with Hugin. Like, if I go Hugin, discard Vision, search a Crimson Gaia. First of all, like, you can play. The one thing it does is it plays around Droll a little bit, because you can Crimson Gaia, add it back from the grave, normal summon it, make Herald. But it's a little awkward. These are awkward. I'm gonna be honest with you, the key, and I think we're close, but I think the key to this deck would be to make it work without the Vision Resonator and with triple Linewalker, and find a good enough line with just Linewalker. And by good enough line, I mean like not just like Chaos Angel pass. That doesn't feel like the one. You can search it. I would just play one. I can see that. I can see this. 1 Vision Resonator, 2 Gaias, with the option to search Vision Resonator with Stone Sweeper. That seems good. With triple line walker, you need the harmonic synchro fusion. I don't see why. How does it change? If I open line walker, what do I do with just line walker if I play harmonic synchro fusion? Like, what are you trying to sell to me right now? Which play? And please don't sell me Denglong with the thingy right now, please. Like, in this situation, what am I doing with harmonic synchro fusion? Like, I'm not opposed to line walker plus Runick equals Griffin. Griffin. What? What? No. No. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's level 8. Reki, that is not a realistic scenario. If I open Runick's plus Linewalker, I still want to summon Hugin. Are you telling me to play a Runick deck without Fountain? Like, get this idea out of your head that you can use Runicks as any level of extenders. No, if you're playing a Runick deck, the first Runick summons Hugin 99% of the time, and it has to. If you're not summoning Hugin as your first Runick, you're already more likely to lose the game instantly. Why don't you consider the Earthbound Fusion quick play? Well, I'm building this deck for now, but the Earthbound Fusion spell is good. Why not one Gaia? You could. If you play one, it makes it awkward if you draw it, because then your Vision Resonator doesn't have a target, but you could. I don't see why Harmonic Synchro Fusion would help us here. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I genuinely don't see it. I don't see how it would make this end board stronger, while also solving the problems that we've had. I don't see it. One way, it's everything is extra deck slots, man. One way would be if we play a different level 5 synchro that is more synergistic here. Like, we could play this friend over here, and that with another Runick is easy combo, like easy mode combo. Like, we send Jet Synchron from the deck, any other Runick, we get cooking. Like, it's actually easy AF. So maybe Axel Synchron is the solution to our problems. Having to play a Jet Synchron, I don't really care about. Like, the Jet Synchron would be okay as a thing. It's true that Earthbound Kraken could add Fountain. The problem with the Kraken is a really good card, but Kraken needs 2 Earthbounds, and it's legit not possible to make that in any reasonable fashion. 2 Earthbounds is simply not something you often have in this deck, and can just make this with the Synchro Fusion. It's just way too big of a combo in order to achieve that. It's a good card, but it's just not feasible to summon in this deck. It's not feasible to summon in this deck. Okay, if we play the Axel Synchron, we can cut the... We don't need the Chaos Angel, I guess. And we have a line now with Linewalker that is most likely good enough. Because I'm gonna be honest, Axel Synchron, send Jet Synchron, summon a second Hugin, draw with Fountain, search another Fountain. Axel can be level 6 or level 4, so we can either make a level 8 or a level 6 after that. No, it's cooking. Like, that's fine. That's good enough. Like, that's 100%, that's gonna work out if we want to. If that is supposed to be the solution to not opening, to only having Line Walker. It would require us to play a Jet Synchron, but Jet Synchron isn't a bad card. Like, we can just discard that for Hugin. Where's my Jet Synchron? I had it prepared somewhere. Here. That would be one way to do it. Funnily enough, Jet Synchron is actually like a fine opener. Like if you just open Jet, discard it for Hugin, you have like extra ways to get more tuners later. No, I don't hate this package as an idea. But yeah. Does that make Frecky not mandatory anymore? Question mark. Because Frecky was only for the... Frecky was also for a line... Mainly was for a line with... Line Walker. Line with Line Walker is funny. So if we have a different line with Line Walker now, maybe we don't need Frecky. That would be one way to fit all of this. Oral, Charge, Maiden, Marcher, Axel, 2 more slots. So a level 10 and a level 8. Like this. Question mark. That could be it. I'm not seeing a... does anyone see a scenario that doesn't work now? Why do we run Omega? You know what? Without Frecky, it's a little harder to make Omega. But yeah. Technically, this would even be questionable. But does anyone see a scenario in this case where like I can't play, right? Like let's say I have Line Walker plus Runick. That's fine. We just go Axel Synchron line, right? I have Groundkeeper, but it gets hand trapped. I have Marshall Matters line, the Eminem. Full combo is gonna be Garden Rose Maiden line. Jet plus Runick still makes this, right? Yeah, Jet plus Runick still works. Like you can Hugin, discard Jet, search fountains, bring back Jet, make Metal Marcher, but no effect, I guess, and still make like Garden Rose. You can still do things with just Jet, but it's very unlikely to draw just Jet. Charge Warrior is still necessary, yeah. For the line that only has 1 Runick. Okay. I guess we can try without that then. Alright. In which case, we would have to put... We would have to put the Jet Synchron into the main deck. Which is okay, I suppose. And we're gonna be playing... either no visions or very small vision package with this, because I'm gonna be honest with you, the visions with this extra deck are not that great because we don't have Herald. So this is what, 12 12 plus this is the main deck is gonna work out fine. We have infinite room in the main deck. Like the main deck is not the problem. We have literally 18 runic spells now plus fountain, so that's 20 plus 12 puts us to 32. Even if we decide to play a small vision package, we still have 5 non-engine slots. If you only have one Runick plus Groundkeeper, can't you just go Axel? Well, I mean, you still summon Hugin first always, so you still need a level 3 Synchro. One vision is risky. Why is one vision risky? You realize this spell can grab from the graveyard. I feel like that's the biggest confusion point about this. Wouldn't Revolution Synchron not just be the better package than Vision Resonator? Wait, what are we trying to do with... What am I trying to do with Revolution Synchron now? How does Revolution Synchron... Like, it's not even searchable, right? That's the point. I can search this with the Stone Sweeper if I already have my thingy, right? I don't really see what Revolution Synchron does for this deck. I don't quite know. So this would be 35. All right. Let's talk about non-engine for a second. Because I think we've talked about the main deck for like, what, 3 hours now? Dude, rip to the editor, dude. The editor has to think about how to turn this into a watchable YouTube video. That's not my business, though, eh? What I'm paying you for. Not my business. Not my problem. Not my problem. One quick note before we move on to the non-engine. The cool thing about these three... This deck does have 3 quote-unquote engine requirements. The Jet Synchron, the Black Garden, and the Earthbound Prison. The cool thing about these is that they are not that bad to draw, because you can simply discard them for Hugin and it doesn't impact your combos in any way. Because Linewalker, the card that searches Earthbound Prison, adds it from the deck or the graveyard. The card that searches Black Garden, which is Garden Rose Maiden, searches it from deck or graveyard as well. And if you already have Jet Synchron, that's honestly even better. You don't have to go into Axel, you just go into Garden Rose immediately and it's fine. So like, these being your discards for Hugin is completely reasonable, which I think is cool. You have like no bricks in your deck, nothing that's like actually hurts you to draw, right? Because that's another thing about Denglong in this deck, is like, yeah, Denglong can search 9 pillars, but if you draw 9 pillars, you can't even discard it for your Hugin, because you need it, obviously. Otherwise, like, Denglong doesn't add from the graveyard, I don't think. Unless it does, in which case, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it does. Dinosaur, thank you for the 2 months. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, 35 card main deck. 35 card main deck. Let me sort it in a more visually pleasing way. Hold up. How? Like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Yep. Pop. 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 And then we've got the Runicks. And now we need to find the 5 perfect non-engine cards for this deck, which honestly, 5 non-engine for a Runick deck is pretty solid. That's about the number you want. Honestly, you could even deal with less in the current format. Like, unironically, I could see myself testing this deck and being like, hey, I want even more Runicks over some of the non-engine for this deck. Like, it's Runick Synchro decks are the the ones where it's the most important to keep drawing Runicks. So I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if in the final version we settle on less than 5 non-engine and play more Runicks, like unironically. All right, so for Runicks, there's a couple things when it comes to your non-engine. Dude, we have like less than an hour left. We still need to build a side deck. A couple rules when it comes to non-engine for this deck specifically, or things that you want to think about in general, is what you want your non-engine to achieve in your deck specifically. There are decks out there where you're like, I think one good way to think about it is look at your deck, think about how much non-engine slots you have, and translate that to how many non-engine your average hand is going to have, right? Like using this deck as an example, we're gonna have 5 non-engine in this deck, which means on average you're gonna see like 1 non-engine going second. You're not gonna see multiples on average. You can, of course, it can happen sometimes. It's a card game. You could draw all 5 of your non-engine, but like in an average scenario, you're only gonna draw about 1 of your non-engine cards, right? If you think that one step further, I think that eliminates a decent chunk of cards from your non-engine pool already, because there are certain non-engine cards that like you need to draw in multiples, like certain low impact hand traps. It depends on the format. Like for example, I played in Bologna, I played Ash in my Runick Bestial deck, but that was only because the format was super diverse and there was no non-engine card that actually was good enough, and Ash was actually quite impactful during that format. But most of the time, hand traps on their own, they don't really cut it, right? When you only see like 1 non-engine. With 5 on average, you draw 0. Well, it's not 0 on average, but you're right. Like the average hand trap, the average count of non-engine is gonna be between like it's close to 1 though. The main point is, in a deck where you don't usually draw a lot of non-engine, you want your non-engine to, first of all, really do a lot, because you don't have much of it. You do not have much of it. And that's why you want your non-engine to do as much as possible. At the same time, it's not a good idea to build a deck that relies on its non-engine like that if you only play so few. Like, this deck on its own needs to be able to do a lot of heavy lifting without relying on non-engine, because you can't rely on non-engine if you only play 5. My initial thought, let me go through some of this. My initial thought is that like hand traps like Valor, Crow, even Ash, honestly, might not be high impact enough when it comes to the... I don't hate the idea of playing Ash still, but move Ash aside. Ash is a tuner. Ash is a tuner, which is a good point. You know, the fact that you can go normal summon Ash, I guess, and make Axel synchron with it with your Hugin is not completely out of the picture. Also, you can special summon it with AFD. Yeah, that's cool. 2 hand traps that are particularly solid in Runick decks, I want to say, is Nib and Droll. Depending on the format, of course. It will depend on the format whether you want to use these cards. But the reason is that even though you don't draw a lot of non-engine, these cards are very, very high impact. So what we are going to do with Droll and Nibiru is we are going to consider them for the main deck even, but they are honestly viable for the like, we're at the minimum you're probably going to side deck these cards, but like they could even be main deck. They could even be good enough, because no matter what I'm saying, like, hand traps going second are not ideal in Runick, but going first, hand traps are really good in Runick because they're really good if you draw into them on your opponent's turn with Fountain. Like, if I go first, I make a board, my opponent plays into it, I draw 2 with Fountain, and I draw my Nib, that's insane. That's so much more better than board breakers in that situation. So hand traps, while not completely synergistic, are sometimes very good with Runics. That being said, Those are the only hand traps that I think I want to consider for this. Because all the other ones don't seem to have the impact. Like Nib and Droll are considerations because they are very high impact. Ash is a consideration because it's very flexible. It does something against everything, and it's a level 3 tuner. Those are the reasons why I want to consider those cards. Lava Golem is a card that I don't think we can play in this deck because we simply need our normal summon. Simple as that. Rust doesn't seem that great right now. Book, nah. Droplet would be okay because we have some... Like, Droplet is okay in Runicks in general because you can send your Runicks to the graveyard. We can send the Vision Resonator package is really strong with Droplet. And Droplet is cool because it even works, like, one bonus point for non-engine is if it also works going first. Because I've played cards like Evenly or Talents, Evenly or Dark Ruler. Evenly or Dark Ruler. I've played those cards in my Runick decks before because they are just really good going second. But it definitely hurts to go first and resolve Fountain and draw an evenly match. Like, that's a very, very bad feeling. So bonus points for Droplet for being able to be used going first. Has synergy with the Crimson Gaia and the Resonator. You can even send like if you send these, you can get them for free later with the effects, so that's fine. So Droplet seems like an okay option that we can think about. Other things, Enemy and Book don't seem impactful enough. Once again, cards like Enemy and Book are much better in decks that have a lot of room for non-engine, where you can draw multiples of these, because an enemy alone is not going to help you solve any board, but enemy after you like hand trap them once, or enemy paired with another book or another talents or anything like that, that's fine. In this deck, I don't think enemy or book are the way to go. Fenrir. Ooh, my nose is stuffed all of a sudden. Fenrir is a interesting card for this deck because it gives you a super easy way, for example, to make Baron super early. Like Fenrir plus Linewalker can just make Baron very early. Fenrir is good, although my problem with Fenrir in Runick decks is the following. Fenrir, probably one of the best ways to start playing. Conversely, Fenrir also one of the worst draws off of Fountain or Talents or anything like that. So we can consider it, but I've always been kind of opposed to... playing Fenrir in Runick decks in the past. Now, another card that I've been... You guys know I love that card in Runick decks, Talents. I'm gonna be honest, the fact that we have 5 non-engine slots right now, to me, it just screams play 3 of something and play 2 Talents. Because Talents is... Talent is my favorite card in Runick decks. My favorite non-engine to play in Runick decks because it's good before Fountain and it's good after Fountain. Simple as that. There's no other card that does that like Fountain. Like Talents. There's no other card that does it like Talents in Runick decks. Like Fenrir, Droplet, Hand Traps, all good cards, all suck if you draw them off of Fountain. But Talents is phenomenal. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm heavily leaning towards playing 2 Fountains. I'm also playing 2 Fountains, but I'm leaning towards playing 2 Talents and playing 3 other non-engine. Evenly is an option. I don't love it that right now. Super Poly, we don't have the extra deck space to play the good stuff, so I think that's not an option. Dark Ruler is technically possible. Yeah. All right, and I think that's the non-engine we're going to decide between. It's either going to be like we're going to play 1 powerful board breaker next to our Talents, like Evenly, Dark Ruler, or Droplet. We can play Fenrir, which is kind of like in the middle, you know, solid going first, solid going second, but not the most impactful cards between. I mean, these are more impactful going second than Fenrir, but the Fenrir is better going first. Fenrir also only good before Fountain, not good post Fountain, right? But you could argue that cards that are good before Fountain are more important, because what happens in a world after Fountain is not that important, because in a world after Fountain resolves, you are already happy. But, you know, you're not happy if you draw too many Fenrirs after Fountain. I've been there. you cannot go Hugin in draw phase if you have Fenrir. That is another good point and not irrelevant as well when it comes to Fenrir and playing around Droll and Lockbird. 100% correct, yes. 10 points to Gryffindor. Or we just play a hand trap. Ash, Droll, or Nib in the main deck next to the 2 talent. Yeah. Another card that I think is worth talking about is Terraforming. I like Terraforming here. Technically, you have different targets. Most of the time, it's going to be for Fountain. I think Terraforming is very format dependent, though. I think Terraforming is really good in Runick decks if people are playing a lot of Veiler and Imperm to stop your Hugin. Or Ash as well. I mean, Ash is always popular. Terraforming is worse in a format where people are playing Droll. And I think we're more likely to be in a Droll format, so I'm gonna take out the Terraforming. But it's an option. It's a good card. My favorites for now are, I like Ash for the versatility. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I think in the current format, before Phantom Nightmare, this is all before Phantom Nightmare, this is for current format. Before Phantom Nightmare, I think most decks, the power level for most decks is not incredibly high. So I'm feeling confident that if I Ash someone and then I have like maybe a solid hand, I can play through their board, especially if my Fountain can maybe pick up a talents. And the fact that it's a tuner, I kind of like that. Droll is another favorite of mine for the current format, though. I think Droll is really strong. I might be more on the fence of let's just main deck Ash and side deck Droll, because against all the decks where Droll is good, we're gonna have it post side, and we're just gonna play the more flexible card in the main deck. But I do think Droll and Lockbird is very, very strong. Nibiru, I think, is not good enough into most of the decks right now to main deck it. I don't think that's gonna be my non-engine. Fenrir, like I said, I simply don't love Fenrir. Droplet is something that I want to consider more, like, yeah. And Evenly. These are the ones that I'm gonna put. These are in the, what did they call it? The recall? Yeah. These are in the recall. Evenly is a card that I've been thinking about because when I played Runick Bestial at the last regionals that I went to, I felt like a lot of times when my opponent went first, Evenly would have been pretty strong against a lot of the decks in the format right now. I think Evenly is something you can definitely mess around with for game 1, especially because Runick is really good at baiting. Even if they open one negate, you can easily bait the negate in the battle phase with like a flashing fire, freezing curses, even just summon Giri and attempt to crash, and then Evenly them after. So I think Evenly is a solid option. Droplet, I would be happy to play if I played more Vision Resonators, but because that's its biggest synergy point. Like if you open Crimson Gaia, search Vision Resonator, and then send like both for Droplet, that's really cool. But because we're on such a small Vision Resonator package, I don't think it's gonna be Droplet. And so it's probably between these three. And this is a genuine process at the beginning when I build a deck. I just think I just make these kind of assumptions of what people are playing and think what I want to do into that. And then you try it, right? You try and see if it works. Because the goal of this entire thing is not to be come up with the perfect list right off the bat. That never happens. You build a deck, you apply some theory, you bring it to a tournament, or you play with some other people, you play test it, and you see if it works out. And that's what we're gonna do on Thursday. On Thursday we're gonna put this deck to the test and play against Pack a little bit, and so on and so forth. And maybe I'll even reiterate over it and make updates and test it against other people and stuff like that. That's up for debate. Let's start with Ash or Droll, just because we have to make a decision now, and without further testing, it's hard to completely have to know what exactly is the right thing. Let's go Ash or Droll, because I'm kind of feeling a hand trap. I'm gonna be honest with you, I like Ash. I like Ash, but looking back at my last recent tournament that I played, I believe I sided in Droll every single time. And with that in mind, I just can't help but think, hey, you might as well just main deck the card. You might as well just main deck the Droll and Knockbird. The only matchup, that is something to consider. The only matchup that Droll is really bad against right now is Labyrinth. And Ash is a lot better into Labyrinth. So if you wanna be prepared for Labyrinth with transaction rollback in the mix now, main decking Ash would be better. So it's probably gonna be main one, side the other. Because if you're not main decking Ash, I think you still side it for Branded, for Labyrinth, even for maybe Sinful Spoils. Like you're gonna main deck one and side the other, right? You're gonna main deck one and side the other, so we can just leave that open for now. Like, you know, either way, this is gonna be our main deck, and then we're gonna try and build a side deck. All right, so this is, one of them is gonna be in the main, the other one is gonna be in the side regardless. It's not too important to decide that right now. Okay, side deck though. I wanna make a quick statement about, in general, cards that are sided for mainly for going first. I'm not a fan of those kind of cards in general, but there are decks where that kind of stuff is necessary. A good way to think about it is, does my deck, how good is my deck at going first? If my deck is really strong at going first, I might not, you just don't need something like this, and Solemn Judgment is a placeholder for any going first strategy, for any going first card rather, like anti-spell or deep barrier or whatever, right? If you're playing a deck that's really strong at going first, you don't want to be siding those kind of cards. If you're playing a deck that's relatively fair, like I'm looking at Sword Soul, Vanquish Soul, Salamangreat, those kind of mid-rangey rogue strategies, right? In those decks, siding something for going first is completely reasonable. In this deck in particular, it's a Runick deck. Runick decks are really strong going first, let me tell you. So we're not going to be siding anything for going first, really. The only thing that we could consider is a copy of Called by the Grave to deal with Droll and Lockbird. Or also a third Talents is also something that's possible to deal with Droll and Lockbird. But other than that, I don't think we need anything for going first. Like a Talents and a Called by, I don't mind that at all. But more than that, we're not gonna need for going first. Hold up, let me look for a Called by. I have it somewhere. Up. Don't know if it's in here though. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, there's a Called by. I think siding those two cards for going first in case you get rolled is pretty okay, because I'm gonna be honest with you, if you get rolled and you have Talents, like Talents plus Fountain, look at their hand, and then play the Runick grind game from there is completely okay. So let's just assume for now we main deck Ash, side deck Droll, so that puts us at 5. One thing you also want to think about is what you can and cannot side out. Like the amount of cards you want to be changing in any specific matchup, right? And that is a very hard thing to generalize. I cannot give you a certain number of cards that you should be siding out. I can just tell you what I would do for this deck in particular, and what I have been doing with a lot of Runick decks in the past. But essentially is at it sounds very simple, but it is not as simple in practice. But the simple answer is just take out the stuff you don't need. Kick W. But the question of figuring out what you don't need is way harder than what it might seem like, because you've built your main deck in a certain way for a reason, right? The thing about building your main deck in a consistent way is that you don't know whether you're going to be going first or second. So I have to build my deck to work going first and going second, which means I have to adjust my Runick numbers accordingly. For example, if I was only playing 15 or 16 Runicks, I I might not draw enough Runicks going first, right? Because I only have 5 cards going first. If I know I win game 1, I know I'm going to be going second now. I know I'm going to be getting a 6th card. Usually, for me, that means I can side out Runicks because I don't need 18 Runick spells in my deck when I'm going second because my extra card is going to make up for it, if that makes sense. Like, I'm going to draw less Runicks in my opening 5, but I'm going to be drawing a 6th card, which is very likely to be a Runick when my deck is full of Runicks, right? And so I can side out usually up to 3 Runicks going second, which is these. I've been doing that a lot. When I played 17 Runicks in Bestial Runick, I would side out even there. I would sometimes even side down to 14 like this. I would side out. Go after I win game 1. I know my opponent is going to go first game 2. I would side down to freaking 14 Runick spells, and it does work out. It's fine. Not always, depending on the matchup. Depending on how many cards you need to put into your deck. But I have never gone lower than 14. But 14 is possible, I think. So that leaves us with 4 potential side outs when we go second. For going first, if we want to side in these 2 cards, I would suggest siding out something that's weak to draw. Like we could side, if we know we can go first, we can side out like maybe you don't need the resonators as much. Maybe you can side out the Jet Synchron line. Maybe you can side out 1 Runick max. Maybe you just side out the hand traps, honestly, the Ash or Droll, whatever you decide, or talents. If you think the match, if you play against the matchup where you don't think they're playing many hand traps, you just wouldn't side in the second talent, the third talents. You just take out talents for well, even then called by. Like, if you only expect them to be on Droll, would you really want to be on triple talents? I don't know. But yeah. Another thing that you can take out going second is normal summons, which I probably would take out like 1 or 2 line walkers going second. More likely 1, because you do want to see a normal summon, but that would work. Which in return, all those things being said, it usually is gonna equal us being able to side out going second, because going first, like I said, we're not gonna be siding in a lot. Siding out going second, we can side out. I'm just gonna assume we're not gonna side out Ash or Talents in most matchups, but you could side those out if they're not good in the matchup. We could side out 1 or 2 normal summons if we wanted to. We could side out some amount of engine requirements. Or we could side out this, right? So I think siding this out is something where we could do sometimes. I don't hate siding out these. I'm not even convinced these belong in the deck, to be honest. This is the one thing I'm the most uncertain about in the main deck, whether we need these guys or not. But this is something you could side out going second, no problem. I don't think you need those particularly often. Earthbound Prison, I would probably keep in because it's a free +1 off of your Line Walker if it resolves. Even if it doesn't resolve, it's a fine card going second, even if you draw it, because it negates one of your opponent's effects. So I don't hate that. I think it's very likely we are going to side out one of these 2 going second. And that it's gonna require some practice. But my prediction is you're gonna find yourself going into one of these 2 lines more often going second than the other, because it's either gonna be Rose Maiden or Axel, right? And those are the engine requirements for those 2. And going first, it's very hard to predict which one you're gonna need. Going second, I feel like you're gonna more often pick one over the other. I think you're probably gonna make Axel more often than Garden Rose, but I'm not sure. How do we get Jet Synchron again? We send it for Axel. We make Axel with Line Walker and Hugin, and we send Jet. So I think one of the 2 might be a side out for going second. One of the 2 might be. And then normal summons as we see fit. Which honestly, it gives us a decent amount of wiggle room to adjust the deck going second. Another note though, you never want to side out all of these together though, because theoretically you could look at this and you could be like, okay, we can side out 3, 5, 7, 11 cards then. No, that you don't want to. Runick remains a deck that wants to go light on non-engine, because you simply need to draw enough Runicks and enough engine to be able to play going second. So it's going to be a mix of these. It's going to be some amount of Runicks, some amount of normal summons, and some amount of these. But it's going to depend on how much we need for any given matchup. So Droll is going to be good in the side deck for any kind of fire decks. I think we could play Duster as like another, because we can play 4 3-ofs and then these 3. That seems reasonable. And now the question just is, what do we want to side deck for, right? And you always have to make a decision between like which decks do you want to respect in a format and which decks do you not want to respect and basically cover with generic goods cards. Like it's significantly harder in like very diverse formats. But there's certain cards that are only good in specific matchups, and then there's certain cards that are good in a lot of matchups. I think right now a good way to tackle it is to play Droll and Nib. I've been doing that in almost all my decks this past format. And I think Droll and Nib are just really, really strong cards in general and cover a lot of different matchups. Although I'm more sold on Droll than I am on Nib. Nib is a card that I am kind of torn on. Like, I'm not entirely sure if Nib is even the best thing. But like, if I'm looking at the current metagame, I'm thinking like, okay, Fire King is a deck that you need a side deck for, because it's very popular. If I'm playing against Fire King and I side in those 4 cards, and my main deck already has 2 talents and 3 Ash, I'm gonna be honest with you, with those 9 non-engine, I am very happy into Fire King. Maybe I'm gonna put Cosmic as well, because it also covers Runick. But I don't think you need much more against Fire King. Fire King doesn't make the most oppressive end boards. It's probably okay. You want to be prepared for Rescue Ace, Labyrinth. For Labyrinth, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think there is a solution for Labyrinth other than if you want to side for Labyrinth, it needs to be a card that is specifically for Labyrinth, and that is Bell. Bell, because Labyrinth with the freaking new Labyrinth with the new transaction rollback, there's no way around it. It's a combo deck now, and you need hand traps to stop it. If you wanna respect Labyrinth, I think it has to be Bell. And I think that's probably worth it for now, unless people are just not going to be playing it. But I think Bell is somewhat mandatory. Like this. I think another card that is somewhat interesting is Cosmic Cyclone, because Cosmic Cyclone can be sided for Fire Kings to help out the board, but it can also be sided versus Runick mirror matches, obviously, which is powerful, which I think is something you do have to worry about. I think another card that we could consider is Evenly Matched. I think Evenly Matched is good into a certain amount of, like, it's good into certain decks. Like, if you play against, it's not that good into other Runick decks, though. I think Cosmic is better. It might just be Cosmic. Yeah. It might just be Cosmic. I like Cosmic. It covers mainly it's here for Fire King and it's here for Runick decks, but it also covers random stuff. Like you can cover Centurion going second, which is scary sometimes, not in Runicks, but like in general. You would still side it. It's a good card. Cosmic might play into time. I mean, Yeah, at the same time, you do have Ancient Fairy to offset it. But yeah, you're not wrong. But it's something you have to deal with, I guess. That's a good point. When I build these decks, in theory, often I don't end up thinking about time. If you play this deck and you notice that it like loses in time a lot, you might have to think about playing like Ghost Moner or something like that. I'm not going to include that for now, because that's usually something I only do if I think my deck has a problem in time. This deck does have Ancient Fairy lines, so I guess it's probably fine. Phantasme is a card I would love to play, but I just don't think there's enough matchups for it right now. I think I simply don't think there's enough matchups for Phantasme. The one thing I'm looking at here, and I'm like, okay, what do I not cover here? And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, Talents and Ash alone already cover 90% of mid-range, to a point where if I'm playing against it, going second with a Runick deck, I'm probably fine. I'm probably fine. Of course not always, but like those cards are so good into mid-range that I'm like, that's fine. I've covered most mid-range decks. I've covered some of the more meta relevant decks, like this one is good into Labyrinth. It also has some applications in other matchups. Like you can side it against Runick if you want to prevent Fountain. Cosmic, good against Fire King, good against Runick decks, good against some rogue decks. Droll Lockbird, really good against Fire King, and really good against a lot of combo decks. And some other Runick variations as well. So like I've covered most of the really meta relevant stuff. The one thing I'm always worried about when I'm playing a Runick deck is obviously how do I handle other combo decks, because I mean this is very light on hand traps if you go second into specific combo decks. Like Manadium, for example, is a popular deck, or like somewhat popular, not super popular but somewhat popular, right? So I'm trying to think, the last three in this deck should probably be a card to help deal with those kinds of matchups. Not entirely sure what the best card against Manadium is, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I think Nib, while it technically has anti-combo written all over it, it feels like a lot of the currently popular combo decks just like, especially Manadium, like it's not Nib alone doesn't feel that great. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. What's your out to Pearly? This does not have an out to Pearly. I'm not sure if you need one. Because one thing that you can do, if the Noir is not too big, like it's hard for them to sit on an unaffected Noir against Runick decks, because you just make a big Chengying, I suppose, would be your way of outing it, but you can also just deck them out if they don't use it. So you can force them to use it and then out it after. So it's not, I don't think that's an issue. Yeah, the problem with Nib, I think, against combo decks is it only works if you pair it with another hand trap, like Veiler, Imperm, Ash maybe, because we don't play any of them except for Ash, it's very, very unlikely that Nibiru is gonna actually help us win the matchup. The problem is, though, and that's a genuine question that I have right now, like, what would help against Manadium if it's not Droll and Lockbird? Like, if there is one card against Manadium that's the most impactful if I draw it alone, what is it? Super Poly? Which, I mean, Super Poly, we would have to side deck the targets for Super Poly, though. It's not impossible, but I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not opposed to side decking Super Poly with extra deck monsters in general. However, I don't think Vanadium is popular enough to justify this right now. If Vanadium was like a top tier threat, then yeah, okay, I would be thinking about dedicating 5 or 6 side deck slots just for this. But with the levels of play that Vanadium sees right now, I don't think it's important to play Super Poly, because at the end of the day, that's the cool thing about Runick's. About Runick decks, your quote-unquote scary matchups, the Vanadium, at the worst case, Vanadium is a 50% matchup for you, because if you go first, you just fuck them up. You beat those combo decks. It's so easy. So like going first, you're always gonna win. Going second, well, like not always, but like it's an overwhelmingly good matchup for you. Going second, you are likely to lose game 1, then you are likely to win game 2, which means that game 3 you still have a chance of seeing, even if it's just roll, you still have a chance of seeing it. But yeah, I'm trying to, of course, having a 50% matchup doesn't feel great when you wish it would be higher, right? Like you don't want to rely on the dice roll. So I think having one other card would be nice, but I'm not sure if it exists. Like, yeah, Lava Golem. Where's Lava Golem? Lava Golem or potentially Sphere Mode. They would work, although I'm not sure if my deck can really, like, we don't have... We without a normal summon, not gonna work out, I think. Dark Ruler sounds okay. So... Dark Ruler... All the Vanadium players in chat right now. All the Vanadium players in chat. If you do not get... hand trapped, how likely is it that you end on the counter trap? %90 of the time. Do they all play it? Like, after siding going first, do they all play the card? Not always. I would expect them to have it, to be honest. I would expect them to have it. Yeah, I would expect them to have the counter trap, to be honest. I would expect them to have the counter trap. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't feel like there is a good solution to Vanadium going second. That's just, maybe it's just a matter of, and that's also another lesson. Sometimes there are just matchups that you can't really solve. There's no other silver bullet other than Droll, I don't think. Phantasme to hope to draw into Droll. Genuinely, that could be something we can do. Because it doesn't only cover, it's like against the meta decks, I don't think Phantasme is that great. But against, if it's the only thing we can have, if the only hand trap that really stops Vanadium is Droll, we can try to go for it. But the thing is, don't they have Baron before you, Phantasme? Not always. Okay. Well, the thing is, you're saying, okay, after they use the Link 1, Droll isn't that good anymore. But the way it would work is they go summon Lightheart, you chain Phantasme, Phantasme draws you Droll, because you're the best, right? Phantasme draws you Droll as Chainlink 2. Chainlink 1 resolves, they search the field spell, and then you Droll them immediately. So the field spell is dead, right? So it's I think it's not that bad. It could be, it could just be the next best thing we have. Lava Golem and sit on your Runics only for 1 turn. I've been thinking about doing that with Lava Golem or Sphere Mode. I haven't tried it though. It is an option. It's an option. But people have told me that the Vanadium follow-up is so crazy that that's not gonna work. Which I can't really judge it. I'm not sure. Pancratops is insane. Is Pancratops that good against the Vanadium board? Is Pancratops that good against Vanadium? Not sure. It doesn't feel good enough. I have Lava Golems here somewhere. This is something that I'd have to try more before giving you a definite answer. The last 3 slots in my side deck, if I could find my Lava Golems. God damn it. Here. The last 3 slots in my side deck, I would say if I were to test against Vanadium, and I can see that, okay, if I go second, I can side out a bunch of my normal summons. I can play Lava Golem or Sphere Mode, and I can just Sphere Mode them and then outgrind them with Runics. If that is something that works, I would say, yeah, play Lava Golem or Sphere Mode. Done. If that is something that doesn't work, I would say play Phantasme, because Phantasme covers, like, it at least gives you a chance to find Droll, like a bigger chance to find Droll. But it also is, I think, a little bit better into other decks. Like if you happen to face Unchained or other decks that link summon a lot, the card is just phenomenal, especially because you have it has a great level for this deck too. Getting a level 7 non-tuner is really good because it makes Baron with Linewalker. So Phantasme would be a cool card to play, but I wouldn't expect it to come in many matchups. But this last card is kind of not necessary for many matchups. You're kind of trying to find the best solution. So it's probably between these two. Someone has also suggested Bestials, which you could play Bestials as the last 3 cards. And they also do something against Vanadium, but once again, it's a matter of, because I'm not playing Vanadium myself, I do need to look into what the best cards against Vanadium are at some point. But yeah, for now, I'm just gonna say probably put Phantasme, hope to draw Droll, and call it a day. I think. All right. To reiterate, to get this to a close, I hope you enjoyed this stream. Judging from the viewer numbers and all that, it looks like it was pretty successful. It looks like you guys were into this sort of thing. This is something, genuinely, I enjoyed this a lot. And a lot of the things that we talked about were things that I have not planned beforehand. It's literally things that come up during this stream, like suggestions that people make, combos that we discover, all that kind of stuff, right? I thought it was very fun, and I am very down to do this on more decks in the future. Of course, it's sometimes limited by the cards I have, but you know, I mean, I do usually have most of the cards that are relevant to the metagame. So I am very much looking forward to doing this more and more often, and I think it was very fun. We're gonna stick around to the Phantom Nightmare openings in a second, or the Phantom Nightmare, the Ashen reveal in a second. I'm just quickly gonna recap. So, yeah, the camera is also gonna be better for the next one probably, because I've already looked into getting an actual camera, like a professional camera for the top-down setting. I think it was fine. I think it works fine. for now, but I'm gonna get an even better one. Can you show the whole deck? All right. To get this to a close, I can't show you the whole deck. For specific lines and everything, we're not gonna have the time for specific lines right now, but because the reveals are in just a bit, but I can show you the whole deck once more. Just as a close, a little closer. All right. If you wanna see the lines, they are all in the VOD somewhere. Which if you came into the stream a little bit later and you're interested in the entire deck building process, there's a command !YouTube on Twitch that lets you see all my YouTube channels, and I have a channel that is just for my Twitch VODs as well. So feel free to check that out. But the editor is gonna try. The goal of this is to be a YouTube video. But the editor is gonna need, that's gonna be a lot of work. I'm not sure if they can really do that, but yeah, okay. It might be an angle of, if we do these sort of streams, maybe I'll do a deck profile. I'm just now thinking about that. Like I might just do a deck profile for it, and then just tell people, hey, if you want the entire deck building process, that's going to be unedited on like the Plus channel or something like that, right? Like that could be a thing. But yeah, for the quick rundown, because we have the reveals in 2 minutes, we're playing the full Earthbound package, and we're playing 3 line walkers because we have spent a long time trying to figure out lines that work with just line walker, and I think we have succeeded. The Axel Synchron line I think is pretty good. So we can play 3 and have it be a good opener as well if we don't have Groundkeeper. As our search target for Groundkeeper for Linewalker, we are only playing the field spell. I've talked about Harmonic Synchro Fusion probably 20 minutes straight in the beginning, and I was planning on playing it, but I do think this is better. Refer to the VOD if you want to know exactly why. We play 1 Jet Synchron because the standard line with Linewalker is going to require Axel Synchron. We play 1 Vision Resonator and 2 Crimson Gaia because Sweeper can search it. It's a good discard for Hugin. 2 Gaias because if we only play 1 and we open it, it's awkward because then Vision Resonator doesn't have a target. So we play 2 in order to make it a good draw. Simple as that. Runicks, we have a beautiful 18 quick play spell Runicks for maximum consistency on the Runicks. We play double Dispelling and Smiting Storm. And we have double Fountain. And all this still allows you to play. Actually, no, there's Black Garden as well for the Garden Rose Maiden. Which once again, I've explained why this is my engine level 5 synchro of choice multiple times. And I'm probably gonna make a more in-depth deck profile on this at some point. And then for 5 non-engine still, we have 2 Talons and 3 Ash. So this deck seems very nice because it's got 18 Runic quick plays, still room for 5 non-engine, plenty of extension going on here. None of your quote-unquote engine requirements are actually bricks because you can discard them for Hugin and add them back because both Linewalker and Garden Rose Maiden add them from the graveyard respectively. So wonderful. 40 card main deck, obviously. For the extra deck, it's 5. Yeah, I'm rushing. We have 2 Hugins, 2 Garys because the line requires 2 Garys. Sleipnir for easy Baron access and just a generically good card. Baron, Croc, actually Baron, Chengying, Croc, Omega for a level 8 option, Ancient Fairy for some of the Resonator plays and some very nasty field spell lines that you can do. Coral Dragon for the standard combo, Charge Warrior for the combo with only 1 Runic. Sorry, I don't have a Charge Warrior. Garden Rose Maiden for the main combo line, Axel Synchron for the line where you don't have, if it's only Linewalker, and then Metal Marcher for the line where if your Groundkeeper gets stopped, your level 1 tuner gets hand trapped, and you don't have access to more tuners, you need this guy. All right. And then side deck that we just built is Bell for Labyrinth, mainly. Droll for fire decks and combo piles, mainly. Other Runic decks too. Phantasme, because it's the only other card for Vanadium that I could think of to have a better chance of drawing Droll, because any other one card doesn't seem to cut it. But that could be a different card. 3 Cosmics for Runick decks and Fire decks, because Fire King Island. And then Talents and Called By to help you have a better matchup against Droll going first, because Droll is very popular. And 1 Duster for all kinds of different decks, including Rescue Ace and Vanquish Soul, that kind. Like, there's a lot of decks where this card is very strong right now. And that's the quick rundown of what we've built in the past 4 hours. And I hope you enjoyed that stream. I did.